and it listened to me. It walked out of the thicket, it turned around and looked at me.
They looked up, and in this tree, there was a monkey man. And the monkey man jumped down out of the tree and started running away.
And suddenly they're right in front of the car. He slams on the brakes and manages to stop. And he's skidding because it's like quite, gravelly. And literally for about a second and a half, they just stood there because they don't know where to go. And you can tell they're panicking. They're like really nothing. And their face is like twitching.
Welcome back to Bigfoot Society, a podcast where we focus on cryptids, the strange, and the unexplained of this world. If you've got a story or something weird to share, send an email over to me at bigfootsociety@gmail.com. And if you'd like to support this show, head on over to patreon.com/the Bigfoot Society. And now, on with the show. Hey all, this week's episode is a special Swapcast I recorded with Mikey and Bub from the Strange Road podcast. Just wanted to put this little snippet in here at the beginning. The episode's going to start out with Mikey and Bub introducing me. We have a crazy episode for you here, all about cryptids, Bigfoot, the Van Meter visitor, and all sorts of weird alternative stuff you may not have heard me talk about before. So enjoy it. It's a lot of fun. It's a long one. You're going to love it. Make sure that you follow the Strange Road guys on YouTube and all the other socials as well. I'll have their information in the show notes. It's important that you follow these guys and that you let them know that Bigfoot Society sent you. And also, subscribe to their podcast, rate them 5 stars, and in the comments say, hey, Bigfoot Society sent me over. All right. Enjoy the show, guys.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of The Strange Road.
Hey.
We have a Swapcast today. Swapcast
cast.
today. I'm Mikey. This is Bub.
Hey.
As always,
How's it
we
going?
have Stoner on the ones and twos, hitting all the magical buttons.
The wizard.
To make all this stuff look cool. We really have an awesome show. Jeremiah Byron from Bigfoot Society,
Right.
everybody.
What's up, Jeremiah?
What's happening, man? Great.
Yeah, dude.
Oh
Love
man,
it.
Be here.
so cool. We you popped it. We were at CryptidCon and got a little tap on the shoulder, and I turned around and you introduced yourself, and we chatted a little bit briefly, but have been kind of keeping in communication a little bit on Instagram.
Okay.
And
Yep.
I was like, man, it'd be so awesome to have you on and get to know you and hear all about the stuff you're doing on all of your platforms. You're crushing
Yeah.
it, dude.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it was Cryptica was so much fun because it's like you never know who you're going to run into there. And I was like, oh, that's
Yeah.
the Strange Road guys. I was like, yeah, totally need to meet them for a few minutes. It was awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. Glad we made that connection. But this episode could go in so many different directions.
That's a good thing.
Jeremiah's into a lot of awesome things.
Good.
And I know, just the amount of volume of people you've talked to when it comes to cryptids and, encounters and eyewitness testimony. So we're really, really excited to hear some of that stuff.
Yeah.
And, this being a Swapcast,
Right.
Jeremiah, we can talk about how did you get started in all of this? Were you
Yeah.
always
Yeah,
interested as a
absolutely.
kid, or?
So it's a little bit of that kind of story where I grew up as a little kid watching weird stuff with my dad.
Nice.
Reruns of like In Search of and
Unsolved mysteries.
a lot of unsolved mysteries.
Yeah.
I would kinda
Wednesday
be, like,
nights.
looking through my fingers like,
My mom and dad
And
would
then,
leave on those nights, and we
Yeah.
would be home alone, and that was like the
Nice.
only thing to watch. And it was like, God, I want to watch it, but I'm going to be
It's
freaked
spooky.
out.
Yeah.
Lock the doors.
Exactly. then I kind of went away. Like my high school years, I was like, but then early 20s or mid 20s, who knows? It all jumbles together after, when you get to that age. I ended up working at Apple for about 5-6 years. And
Cool.
There's a lot of weird people that work at Apple, and they're awesome. So met some buddies there, and we would talk about like all sorts of like cryptid stuff and just the weird stuff, right? And I was reading the paper one day, and I was like, oh man, we got cryptids next to us in Iowa.
Yeah.
And so after that, I started listening to, different podcasts, but I was like, man, I really feel like I could do this maybe a little bit better. At around the same time, my buddy Andrew was involved with Seth from Small Town Monsters.
Okay.
He was doing the camera work for Terror in the Skies. And so he invited me to go to a shoot where they were interviewing a few people for that documentary in Des Moines. And I was like, yeah. And I figured I'd just be watching off to the side. And at the last minute, he was like, okay, I need you to pretty much be the guy off camera who gets them to say different things through your questions, and we're going to cut your stuff out. And I was like, whoa. And that was like 5-minute warning. And I was like,
Wow.
okay, let's do it.
Thrown
and
to the
like
wolves.
halfway through that experience, I was like, man, I love to do this. Like,
Yeah.
I've never interviewed people, but I absolutely love this. And so, after that, I was like, man, I'd download Anchor and start talking to myself in my phone. And then I started having people on, and I think we're about like 196 episodes into it.
Wow.
It's about 3-4 years, started in 2019.
Wow.
So
Good for you, man.
Dude, that's awesome.
That's excellent.
it's crazy. It's been an adventure.
So at what point did you really start getting into because the short form videos that you do are just great. I know you're in TikTok and Instagram and doing the YouTube shorts. Is that something that you've kind of recently been focusing on? In addition to the podcast?
Yeah. So the podcast has really changed into something more, because the trick is that in order to have people come and listen to your podcast, you have to be where the platforms are that have the eyes. So right now, the organic reach is over on TikTok. So I've been trying to hit that hard and become like the Bigfoot guy over there.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been making all these videos over there to do with Bigfoot encounters. Those do really well, Bigfoot history. And then I'll download those and then repost those on YouTube Shorts, which is very popular right now, and Instagram Reels. All those I think it's 9:16 dimension short form videos. Those are like really getting thrown out there from the platforms, and that's how you're gonna get an audience right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, dude, keep it up, because that stuff is just awesome. Like, I really enjoy every time, we're notified. We see them, mainly I see them, your shorts on YouTube, but there's constantly content you're putting out. So, keep that up. And I see the direction. It's just,
It's a lot of work.
Guests are killer. And, it's just been really cool to kind of see from a distance over the years of kind of where, because I know you were one of the first people we followed. Strangeology,
Cool. Awesome.
Bigfoot Society.
Yeah.
There's confessionals. So yeah.
Oh, he's so good. Tony's great.
Yeah. So, what you decided to really just go down the rabbit hole with this stuff. And it's kind of a slow process, I imagine.
Yeah.
And then, at a certain point, is there something that you experienced or somebody that you met where you're like, oh God, this is all real? Or what was that one thing?
That's a good question.
You got pulled.
What was that? Yeah. I feel what you're saying. As I started to get relationships with some solid people, and I cover different cryptid things. I cover different high strangeness things, but I focus a lot on Bigfoot because, again, a lot of people are into Bigfoot right now, and I love it too. So as I started to get these like solid relationships with people like Tate Hieronymus, Alex Petikoff from Beyond the Trail, where I like really talk to these guys a lot. I'm like, oh man, there could be something to this stuff, you know, like this isn't just a video you're watching on the internet. Like this is actually like people are going hardcore into this.
Right.
And Tate was always like, dude, we got to get you out in the field. We got to get you out in the field. And if I could tell a little story for a bit.
Please do.
So he finally gets me out in the field last summer, around, I want to say around August. And this is in Iowa. We have there's a place he goes to research. So he brings me out there for a weekend, and you know, I've got the audio gear. He's got all the gear, and we're just hanging out in the campsite. And I'm by the fire one night. It's 110 heat index, so hot.
Ooh,
and I'm trying to get used to that. He's in his truck taking a nap because we're going to be out late doing stuff. But I'm by the fire because I don't know enough to, like, I need to take a nap. I'm just hanging out. I'm on my phone because we were out in the woods, but I still had cell signal. So I was like on my phone, and all of a sudden to my left, I hear like this. I was like, whoa, what was that? And I wasn't sure if it was a knock or not. The thing about that is I didn't get it on film and no one else heard it. But the next night, the temp dropped by about 30 degrees and we were out hanging out around the fire. All of a sudden, 30 feet in front of us in the woods, this huge tree gets pushed over. And I'm like, Tate, was that a firework? He's like, dude, what are you talking about? There's no fireworks out just nowhere.
Like a crack.
A huge tree.
Wow.
Yeah. And he's like, he gets up and he's like, I'm going to start doing wood knocks against the tree in camp. I'm like, dude, go for it. So he like starts hitting the tree. Less than a minute later, we get a return knock to the right of our camp, like what felt like maybe 100 feet into the woods.
Wow.
And stuff was just like going back and forth all night. And we were like, I was like, this is nuts. This is actually real.
Wow.
Fast forward to I had an audio recorder going all night long. So I got 7 hours of audio.
Nice.
And when the next few weeks I was going through it, because it takes a long time to go through that audio.
Mm-hmm.
We hit 3:45 a.m. in the morning, and knocks start happening again.
Oh my
all
gosh.
over the place. I was like, but here's the thing, guys.
You're intense?
Tate's in his truck sleeping. I'm in a tent by myself.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's important. So I'm in the tent. This is what you capture on audio.
Yeah.
You capture the tent zipper being unzipped.
What?
I didn't leave the tent at all that night. So now I'm like, what's happening? Like, Bigfoot doesn't open tents zippers.
You were asleep.
But I was asleep. But the thing is that I interviewed people in the months after that actually had stories about like Bigfoot messing with their tents and unzipping tent zippers and unzipping food in their campsites. Wow. And I was like, oh my goodness, what happened that night? This is nuts.
Right.
So yeah,
I would say I would say that would push you pretty solid in one direction of, you know, you're already doing it, but I mean, you know, having that personal experience.
Yeah.
And even if it's just audio, you know, it's sound, like, you know, you're not seeing something rise out from behind, which that would be a whole nother level, but it's still
I like, handle that.
How do you,
it's like Close Encounters of,
hearing
you know, this kind and that kind and this kind of
back and forth.
Bigfoot, right? Like there's Close Encounters of you see a footprint kind, and then there's like the video I saw where the lady's like, I don't know what was going on, but you see this creature and their dog won't go that way, and it's like, I don't know, you know. There's scales to it, right? There's no one way to slice the encounter or the experience, I guess is what I'm saying. And I think each level has its own uniqueness. Sometimes it's like, I'd rather just see it and know rather than, you know, your own mind making it up too. And like not making it up, but like,
absolutely,
in absence of having it there in front of you, you're left going, so that thing pushed a tree over. It has to be this big. Like, you know, it's not me doing it. It's not Mike doing it. It's not a grizzly bear doing it even, right? Like if you're in that area. But it's a big creature that is incredibly strong doing it.
With Tim Hortons 2 hot breakfast sandwiches for $6 deal, you can mix and match your favorites. Mix and match between savory sausage or naturally hickory smoked bacon. Mix and match between an English muffin or flaky biscuit. Any two served with a freshly cracked egg and melted cheese. You can even mix and match how you share it. One for you, one for them, 2 for them, or 2 just for you. There's no wrong way to mix and match this tasty deal. 2 breakfast sandwiches for just $6. It's time for Tim's. Limited time at participating U.S. restaurants. Single item at regular price. Modifications and tax extra. Additional terms apply.
Download Upside and start getting cash back wherever you roll. It's like having your own hype man. Get an average of 17% cash back at restaurants.
Oh, it's dinner time.
Average of 13% on groceries.
Get those groceries.
10 cents per gallon average cash back on gas.
It's go time.
Plus, cash back at participating convenience stores too.
Stacks on stacks.
Users can earn hundreds of dollars a year, 3 times more than other apps.
Upside, show me that money.
All right, we get it. It's easy. Just sign up for the free Upside app and start getting cash back for doing you. Download the free Upside app and use promo code DOYOU10 for an extra $10 cash back on your first purchase of $10 or more. That's promo code DOYOU10 for an extra $10 on the free Upside app. Get cash back for doing you with the free app from Upside.
So what kind of tree are we talking, Jeremiah? Sorry, what kind of tree? A sapling, something that, you know, and where did it snap? Was it at a point where it was pretty high off the ground of where it broke? Did you guys see the next day?
It was imagine, so it was like, it was a full tree getting pushed over. Like, imagine like a dead tree, like around this diameter.
Yeah.
Imagine that falling over, the noise you would hear. Like it
35-foot
was
tree.
loud enough where I was like, that's got to be a firework. And Tate was like, dude, no fireworks out here. This is we're out there big time.
You guys didn't go investigate that tree's location, did you? Like, did you go in the direction of the noise? Actually, yeah. Okay, I wondered if it fell over, if it snapped in half.
That's a great question, though.
Yeah.
Man, that's great.
I never knew that was a Bigfoot sign.
Well, they bend them over, right, Jeremiah, to kind of point sometimes direction or markers, where they'll kind of snap them over into these A's.
Some people hold that, they will make tree structures, or they will actually have a sort of language by the way that you see saplings like formed in an X or bent over, things of that nature.
Like
there's quite a few people that hold that. Yeah.
Let me ask your opinion on something real quick. We were in Sequoia National Park, my wife and I and friends of ours 2 years ago. And I know about the heat index you were talking about earlier. We were on Lake Havasu for like 3 nights on a houseboat, and it was 118 degrees. And the coldest it got was like 100 at 6 a.m. But we're up in Sequoia National Park for 2 days. And I think it was on 2 days. I know it was on 1 day for sure. I heard a tree go down that if you're in Sequoias, and I don't know how big the tree was, but I could feel the ground shake.
Oh, man.
And I was okay, cool. And never thought anything of it. And not that I think Sasquatch is pushing those over, but again, that kind of like, even on the scale of proximity, if it's close to you and it's a 30, 40-foot tree, if it's got enough weight, especially if it's a live tree or, something with some heft to it, I mean, even that's going to make an impact that you hear it and you might possibly feel it. Like, do you think it's a warning or hey, I'm here?
It's such an interesting thing to think about, because the tricky thing with Bigfoot is that we don't have the ability to talk to them and be like, okay, how are you guys communicating?
Yeah.
But it's like, it's a creature, creatures communicate in different ways. There has to be ways they're communicating.
Right.
Why isn't pushing over trees like that one of those ways? Definitely
and knocking.
People have heard rock clacking, wood knocks. There's also a myriad of different vocalizations. Like the Ohio howl, and who knows what those mean.
Right.
So I think it very well could be some sort of maybe a warning call. Maybe that's a way that, like, if you guys were in the area and they're like, hey, we just saw a human, this is the easy way for me to tell you I'm going to push over a tree. I mean, who knows?
Stay back.
Yeah.
Stay back. Over here, you're not welcome.
I think I'm staying back. And for both reasons, if I think it's a Sasquatch or not, a tree just fell over. Do I want to walk where a tree just, maybe it's a kind of a double entendre of threats of maybe it's natural, maybe it's Bigfoot, but maybe they're just also kind of trying to, obviously they don't like to be seen. So I'm just going to kind of warn you from a distance with a very long reach.
Yeah, exactly.
Or throw a boulder
and
at
that's
you,
what
or throw a big rock at you. Or
right, you hear the stories of the rocks.
Yeah.
Like up in the Pacific Northwest, like the Olympic Project, specifically, like, the area with the nests up there, the Bigfoot nests, like they would find areas where, it's almost like they would have sentries up on the ridges that could see the nests. And I believe it was Shane Corson found like some rocks that could be used for clacking together. And who knows, like, if that's a way that, like, one of the sentries is warning the others if a human gets in the area. And, like, how smart are these creatures? We don't know.
Right. But sounds like a rock falling off the side of the cliff on another rock, or, a very nondescript noise, unless you know the cadence and, overall, what do I want to say, strength of that clap, and kind of are tuned into that, language. Thank you for answering that.
I feel like they're more human than they are animal, for sure. I mean, some of those vocalizations, it really does sound like a language, and like some sort of, almost Japanese.
Oh, the samurai sounding. Yeah, chuntering, as one lady describes it on the Sasquatch. I love the Sasquatch Chronicles. I don't know if you ever listen to them, Jeremiah, if you've ever heard him. But his intro with the little British woman, they were chuntering away.
Yeah.
My wife gets a kick out of it every time. I love it. God, it's so funny. But yeah, that's a very unique clip of audio to hear if you've gone, oh, yeah, I've heard the hoops and whatever. And then you go, what is that?
The samurai chatter and everything.
Yeah.
Can I try something? I may be able to play something right now.
Oh, please do.
Yeah, do it.
Let's try it. Let's try it. This is
fire in the hole.
You got your new piece of gear, man. Let's use it.
Watch out, Kyle. Here it comes.
Let's see. Oh, you're sending it to Kyle.
Let me know if you can hear that. No?
I don't hear it.
Okay, never mind it. Don't worry, kids. Just Google Sierra Sounds and you'll hear what I was.
Sierra Sounds. Okay.
Sierra Sounds by Ron Moorhead. And it's wild stuff.
Yeah.
Cool.
It is a great clip. That's the one you're talking about.
Yeah.
Absolutely it is.
That's great. So I know you're in Iowa. Now, when you're a kid, you're around that area. Ohio has a lot of legends and weird ancient stuff, and a lot of different things that, I didn't know about for pretty much until I was in my early 30s and late 20s, started realizing how much stuff was going on in Ohio.
I knew
even
very little.
The cryptids and, some of those kind of things.
Yeah.
Now, where you're from in Iowa, is there anything local legends? Is there any cryptids that are famous from Iowa?
Oh, totally. So I moved out to Iowa about around 2008-ish. I lived in Western Mass before then. So I moved out to Iowa, and as I started to get into things again, I was like, man, there's more weird stuff than people know out here.
Yeah.
For example, the main one that people may have heard about is the Van Meter Visitor, which is a winged cryptid that we have. And this is in a town called Van Meter that's about 20 minutes west of the Des Moines central area. The story goes, and I'll kind of paraphrase things, but the story goes that in 1903, around late September, there was a night where all of a sudden this winged creature looked like an oversized, creature with bat wings, huge bat wings, a horn on its head that shot out a beam of light. There was a part involved where it was very smelly. Yeah, it was almost like you would picture a pterodactyl, right?
I got a lot of questions.
With lasers on its freaking head.
Freaking laser beams attached to their heads.
Right. So this creature starts messing around with Van Meter, which is a small mining community.
Okay.
And
a mining community of
that plays
coal mining.
Later.
What?
Yeah,
coal mining.
So it gets pretty wild with that later, for sure.
Just saying. Thinking of West Virginia, giving me feels.
The first night, they see the creature hopping around, and there's one night where it is hopping around on the rooftops. It's seen coming down a pole upside down, almost like a parrot would, which is very weird.
Let's say that sounds a little risque.
Well, it gets even more risque if you can imagine. There's another night where the bank manager is inside the bank and he's trying to make sure that everything is safe. And pretty much he shoots at the visitor from inside the bank, which doesn't hurt the visitor. And they say they got a footprint, a 3-toed footprint of the visitor, but the thing is, it's never been found. And unfortunately, people out here that are into this, they're like, oh, maybe someday someone will find the visitor footprint, right? I've talked to all sorts of people, and if it was a plaster footprint over 100 years, it's probably not going to be around anymore.
Right.
But if you've got it in
somebody's
your garage,
private collection, yeah,
I would love to see it. Yeah,
it's stowed away.
So we'll fast forward a little bit to eventually things escalate where the visitor flies off to the mine. So there's a mine on the outskirts of town, and it's messing with the people out there. There's actually a smaller adolescent Van Meter visitor scene.
What?
The townspeople are like going to put a stop to this because it's been messing with them for a few days now. So the people of Van Meter, Iowa, get together a posse, and they're like, we're going to get all of our boomsticks and get out to this mine and just totally take care of this visitor.
Like Beauty and the Beast and Gaston.
Like, revving up, like
Gaston. Burn it down, kill the beast.
Yep.
Exactly.
I'm sorry.
Yep.
That's one of my favorite
great
films.
analogy.
It's
really
as
funny.
A kid, right?
That's
I'm just
funny.
imagining, like, man,
Gaston.
This son of a bitch. He's come after us one too many times.
Make an example.
Kill the beast. So pretty much the visitor is impervious. It can't be hurt. The Des Moines Register reported this as there was enough firepower to sink the Spanish Armada. So that's how much they had going on. Pretty much the visitors, I believe they escape in the mine, and then they're never seen from again, except for a few times in the last few years. There's been weird sightings around Van Meter. There's been one time when a guy was walking a dog, and they find a huge bat-like creature dead on the side of the road. They come back later, the creature is gone. There's been a report of a pastor on the east side of Des Moines around Colfax that saw a huge flying creature up in the sky. That cryptid is actually referred to as the Colfax dragon, I believe.
Okay.
But it's close enough so that the guy who saw that was like, oh, that kind of sounds like what this visitor thing was.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a weird thing. The cool thing, though, is that every year there's a festival about the Van Meter visitor that goes on in Van Meter. On the this year, it's September 30th. We bring in people. We have a celebration of the legend of the visitor. Chad Lewis, who's the author of the book, got it right here. This is a great book. If you're into this. It is the book on it.
Wow.
You can actually do a walking tour where you walk through the streets of Van Meter. You walk into the bank where the shootout happened, and then you get to walk out and see where the mine was on the outskirts of town, and you can ask Chad questions. It's
That's
very
cool.
cool. So
Yeah.
Dude.
it's awesome to have
That's
an
great.
event like that happen like
Yes.
20 minutes away. So
Oh man, so this is a local legend for you, 20 minutes away.
it's
Yeah.
extremely local.
Wow. So what age do
Yeah.
you think you were when you first heard this story? Is that something all the kids know when they're growing up? Like it's one of the first things
Oh
you
no,
hear?
this was when this is when I worked at Apple. So I was like,
So you just
No,
came
no, he didn't
across
grow
the-
up there.
not right.
You were okay. So it's
He
20
moved
minutes
there.
away from where you moved.
He moved there 8
Yes.
years ago.
Yes.
Yeah.
Got it.
All good.
No, I get it.
Yes, it was. I was an older, well, mid to late 20s. Let's say.
Yeah.
I'm just curious. So they
Man.
were saying they could smell it. Like,
Yeah,
Nasty.
there were parts during that
How
week
close are
where
you to
it
this
was
thing?
as a defense mechanism, kind of like emitting a smell as a defense. It was very
Jesus.
weird.
did they say how big it was? Like, we're talking pterodactyl.
I want to
size?
say it was like
I mean, like a man.
7 to 8 feet tall. They were saying
It's always that 7 to 8 foot tall.
Why you gotta be so tall, cryptids?
8 foot. 8 foot. Yeah.
Wow.
It's wild, right?
It is like my fear of where I grew up. Everybody's so tall, and all the cryptids have to be too. It's just like not fair.
Exactly. So I've taken that cryptid as my local regional cryptid, and I just, on the podcast, I have just totally been hyping it up. And the cool thing is that that wasn't unnoticed by the people that run the festival. So
Oh, cool.
I'm actually helping to run the festival now,
Of course.
Great.
which is really cool, right?
That's an awesome
Absolutely.
It's an
marriage,
awesome
man.
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude. So I'm excited to help the community and the economy of Van Meter through that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I would
Anything
love to
local
go
like
to
that is always a positive. You
Oh,
know,
yeah.
Get people together.
Yeah,
and
so much fun.
especially to have fun doing something like that's really cool.
Yeah, I mean, the Mothman Fest, we got to make it to that.
Not been there, but I've been to the museum.
we had
Took
something-
myself down there.
Yep, been down there,
Yeah.
just the
I
festival.
haven't made the festival.
But the Ohio Bigfoot Conference, Mothman Festival, there's some awesome stuff kind of happen around us.
You guys are in a
Yeah,
good
yeah.
area to see stuff.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Well, I've not seen anything in the wild, but yeah, there's a lot of.
Well, we could. We wanted to drive out to
That's
Salt
true.
Fork.
You could.
Yeah,
Yep.
well, I've been out there. Not there. I have been to Salt Fork. Yeah, I've been there.
Got to hit up Dusty.
Oh, you
Roof.
have?
Yeah, absolutely. My wife does a lot of hiking and just takes our dog out.
Oh,
and
wow.
So she goes everywhere and anywhere that she can with
Oh,
him.
man.
But,
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I'm sure. I know that she's
That would
been
be
there
cool.
before.
That's on my list to see for sure.
Nice.
When's the last time you were in Ohio?
Well,
Have you been to the Bigfoot conference?
I
out here
haven't,
yet?
no, but we did drive. We drove through it. Last year, we took a road trip out to New England, and we did drive through Ohio. So it drove right past the Salt Fork sign, but we couldn't
Yeah.
stop.
Yeah.
We actually drove right through Columbus.
Yep.
You were on 70.
70.
Yeah.
That's the vein.
It was
East and West.
a
There.
lot busier than I thought it was going to be. Oh my goodness.
Columbus?
I was like,
Columbus is
that
going
highway
crazy.
is nuts, dude.
Columbus is
Yeah.
going crazy. It's been going crazy for the last decade, but it's really hit kind of
blowing up.
Rick Moranis hyper speed or ludicrous speed.
Yeah.
We're going plaid.
I was like, get me out of there, dude. Too busy for this Iowa guy.
Too
Yeah.
much for.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
It keeps growing.
Now, in
yeah.
Iowa, do you guys have any ancient sites, like any ancient lore or anything that temples or mounds?
Oh yeah, definitely. So
Okay.
I will preface this by saying this is the one I know about
Okay.
that I've actually. We have in the northeast section of Iowa, we have what are called the Effigy Mounds National Monument. It's a collection of mounds, similar to what you guys have out in Ohio, I believe. But it's a really cool area. Unfortunately, the time that I went there, I wasn't into the mindset of all this stuff.
Sure.
So I was viewing it through a different mindset. But
Yeah.
there's a lot of cool different, Native American exhibits you can go to, and it's very cool. So we do have that one thing going for ancient stuff.
Yeah, and I know Iowa's had a lot of mounds, just like Ohio, where they've just gotten kind of leveled through farming and expansion of. And I know, Iowa, just like Ohio's got a lot of agriculture and, soybeans and corn, and over, 200 years, they just kind of dwindle away, and they're lost in history.
Torn apart and whatever.
Yeah.
I was going to say I have I have an estimate for this from following Leper on Twitter.
Yeah.
I asked him the other day, I was like, how many mounds roughly do you estimate in North America, et cetera? He's
How
like,
many there were?
like 1 million.
Yeah.
He's like upwards of 1 million.
There were
easily
10,000 just in Ohio.
Yeah.
We
He's
have
like, they're
about-
everywhere. Because if you follow him on Twitter, it's all he does is post picture of mound in every different state and every different location. You're like, what the?
Yep.
It's crazy. It's really wild.
That's wild.
Like Mike was saying, they turned into farmland, or they got torn down, or people dug
Excavated.
into them, or
The Freemasons and early antiquarians.
dig them apart.
They're all over it.
Yeah.
So, Jeremiah, your call-in show, how fun is that?
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I wanna hear about this.
Can you share any particular moment or person that has stuck out from that call-in show?
Yeah, I want to hear.
Oh yeah. That call. So I can't remember. I'm like 25 Sundays into this.
Okay. 25
I think I was
dedicated, dude.
I was thinking, like, I can't remember why I started it, but I was like, man, there needs to be like an old Art Bell type thing where people.
Yes.
Oh, I listen to the archive still.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I love it.
So I was going for that. And I've literally have a Google Voice number that I'm putting out on the internet. And Sunday nights from 7:30 to 8:30 p.m. Central Standard, you can call in and live on YouTube, and then I put them up on the podcast afterwards. Sometimes people call in and share their stories. There's some weird ones, dude.
Yeah. But it's cool to provide that space.
Because a lot of them are people where they've not shared their story,
Right.
Right.
Let's see, what would be one that comes to
But they can remain like completely anonymous, correct?
Because
they're like,
it's
they
audio
have to-
only. It's audio only.
Yeah,
Yep.
absolutely. Well, that's what I'm saying. Like some people don't want to be like, "Hey, I'm so and so." They just want to be like, "Hey, look, I saw something that was weird.
We had
Here you go."
Dogman encounter video that we did where our buddy, we changed his voice and identity. He wasn't comfortable coming on, but Dogman encounter, like pretty close on the coastal Carolina, near in between basically like Wilmington and Surf City, coastal North Carolina. And it's kind of swampy, boggy, tons of deer, tons of wildlife. And 4 people saw this creature. And so, that was, I would love to do more of those kind of.
Yeah, and I didn't know about that
stories.
happened years ago. I was
Yeah.
like, it's like a Christmas present you forgot to give me, or what?
Yeah, he just never.
Exactly.
What the hell's wrong with you?
Kim was terrified. And I had to beg them to, basically bring it on. Like, I want to know the story.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome. One story that I can remember, a guy named Burton Moran. His YouTube channel is Local Legends with Burton Moran, I believe. It's a really good channel. But he was calling in from South Dakota, and he was telling me about how in the past they've seen a giant owl. Stories of seeing a giant owl up there in South Dakota. And the thing is that, and
Burton's in the chat.
Now you're going to hear about it. So now it might happen to you. But there's supposedly, when you hear people talking about this giant owl, then you're going to see a giant owl within the next few weeks.
Oh God.
The crazy thing is, I had a guy from Central Iowa call in a week or so later, and he's like, yeah, this is weird, but I'm seeing something behind my house with glowing eyes, and that's standing very tall up at night. And he's like, I don't know if it's a giant owl, but there's something out there now. And I'm like,
what?
Dude, Patrick, oh no, you got cursed by the giant owl. So
Bob just
that's
hopes
one,
that happens to him.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah.
I have a second floor balcony. Come land. You know what?
You have a great
Yeah,
owl
exactly.
viewing deck. At
I
your
know.
house.
I wanted to build like an attraction platform to put meat up there and stuff for him at night. But I always joke, man, that my wife, you know, living with me, and I'm the one that wants to see the UFO and the alien and whatever. And like one day I have this dream that, you know, I'm going to see that UFO and that beam of light. And I'm going to run down there and they're going to be like, we're here for her. And I'll be like, yep, makes sense. Go ahead.
Get to go
Let
on the
her
ship.
take the interstellar trip. Don't let me go.
Yep.
There you go.
Here with
Yeah,
the dog.
contact.
Yeah, but if he could land on my deck, we could hang out there. I've got a little porch, you know, fireplace for him. This big owl, I'm down for it. I've got snacks. Just don't eat my dog.
Yeah,
So-
leave the pets out of this.
Well, he kind of looks like a little hot dog, so he's kind of asking
yeah.
for it.
Oh,
Exactly.
so he's asking for it for sure. Yeah.
He looks like a little sausage.
Have you ever been invited to come and investigate from any of these folks that are reaching out to you? Like,
Yeah.
hey, we have this active thing happening. You should come out and
Do some field work.
And do
You
some
know, I
field
haven't
work.
actually. That
Yeah.
that would be kind of cool though. Yeah,
Yeah.
I would be into that. That would be cool. And I think that's just part of, as my name gets out there to the everyman community, like the people that are into weird
Right.
stuff, like they know who,
Right.
but like, you know, I'm not to the level where it's like, oh, I saw a Bigfoot, maybe I should try to contact the Bigfoot Society guy. Instead, they're thinking of like, I should try to contact the Finding Bigfoot guys, you know?
Right.
So maybe someday, I mean, if someone contacted me, is like, hey, I've got something going on in Iowa and I want you to check it out. Like, dude, I would totally be up for that. Like,
Right.
yeah, that'd be great. But not yet. So,
I would be up for it, I think. I would.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, man. I would need to go strength
so
in
cool.
numbers. It couldn't just be like me and one other person.
No,
Like,
no.
we're going to need like 4.
You would have
maybe
a
5 so that I could be
No,
the
no doubt.
fastest one, hopefully.
the one that doesn't get abducted.
Put on my outdoor cross trainers, wearing a sweatband as I show up.
geez.
Like,
And then
ready?
You're on the next Politis documentary.
He went missing. He got separated from his friends. By the way, we love David Politis as well. Not making fun of that. Love his stuff as well. But
The new
yeah,
doc
that's right. David
was
plays.
solid.
Come on down.
oh man.
Yeah.
Strange road, David.
Like I said, he was supposed to be at CryptidCon, and I didn't realize that until Mikey
know.
had said it. And I
Oh,
was
I
like, I'm
know.
glad you didn't tell
That
me
would've been sweet.
beforehand. I would have been heartbroken even more than I was, but it was easier to kind of be let down at the end of it rather than the start. But it was still
That's
great.
true. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, I
There's
don't
some
want to
good
go missing.
speakers at that conference, so it was so good.
Yeah. Yeah.
There really was. We definitely got, a lot out of Micah Hanks.
Yeah.
There
Oh,
was,
dude. Yes.
there were some good ones.
Yeah. His
It was
great.
fun. And really, we just got to meet a lot of people. People that are.
Yeah.
We're trying to.
I was still extremely sore. I couldn't move much.
Yeah,
so I
you were
was
hurting. You
very,
were
had a lot of back pain.
taking a break or two here or there.
I just had to sit. Just couldn't do it.
Oh, I hear you, dude. I was just tuckered out, but it was so the best part for me was definitely meeting people that you'd been talking to online, and like
Right.
there was a Sunday night after the conference where a group of us were just in the bar talking for like 3-4 hours, and it was
Yeah.
like
That's it.
people like Seth Breedlove, Alex and Eli from Beyond the Trail were there, Mark Murcell, Tim Halloran from Bigfoot Influencers, like all these,
Oh yeah.
He's
a cool
guys in the community, and just be able to like talk Bigfoot stories with them
Yeah.
one-on-one is,
Yeah.
well, you can't do that any other way,
Right.
No.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, and get everybody
It was
there
cool.
at one place to kind of just hang out afterwards,
Yeah, exactly.
and unwind, and those are the best stories too, right? Like that's the stuff where it's like, well, I don't have it prepped, but I haven't worked out this story yet, but there's a lot of kind of I don't know, unknowns in those conversations that come up and you're like, I've never heard that before. That's awesome.
Yep. There's a lot of connections that are made through conversations like that with different people that normally don't talk to each other. And that's a really cool part of it.
Right.
It's the connections. Yeah.
Dude, such a good time. Such a good time connecting with so many people out there. And we just showed up with a bunch of stickers and stuff to give away and just kind of, saying hi to people. And
yeah, basically just trying to say, hey, we're out here. We're kind of trying to do this too. And we appreciate what you guys are doing. And
no
we
booth.
hope to...
We didn't have anything like that dialed in. It's like, no, we're going to go have
fun. I did hear somebody
hang out.
Same here.
I did hear somebody at one point. I was sitting there and Kyle and Mike had gone somewhere, and Mike, we had stickers everywhere, like on the computer. And I just remember hearing a couple as they walked by, and they're like, "Oh, hey, look, there's some more of those Strange Road stickers. Oh man, I've seen those." It was like, "Oh man,"
because we gave away like 100.
He just walked up, set them down on a tabletop, set them down.
Oh yeah,
on a
I got
table,
tired of handing them
out.
out. I was just setting them down on the table.
Hats, whatever he had that he could, put out there, which is great. Again, like, we want to be able to get people to tune in and be able to see what we're doing, and again, hopefully give us a waypoint marker of yay or nay. Do you like it? Do you not like it? Like, that's fun.
Yeah.
And I think we're all kind of shocked just by the overall response already of, people that watch it or tune in on Spotify or whatever podcast. Like,
anybody that's
great.
tuning in
really
right now to the live stream. So what's up, everybody, and welcome.
Totally. I don't even think I don't think about it because I'm thinking about it in the sense of we're doing it live, but I don't really like. There's a lot of different layers going on at once to be aware of mentally, right? Like when you're doing these shows. And as far as I can see, all I see is Jeremiah and you. Like, I know it's happening, but to not have it in front of us makes it a little different. But I think helps keep the conversation a little bit more in front of us.
And we're going to get some of the stuff where we can integrate when somebody tunes in or subscribes, or
absolutely.
And then we can have
that interaction.
Pop up.
That stuff is cool.
We're still in beta mode in a lot of ways.
Like you're saying, but you're opening yourself to all kinds of resources of people to talk to that you're just like, what did you say? Oh wow,
fun.
I've never heard that story. It's great. Like that story from the Twitter follower Twitter guy I follow.
Yeah.
His story about the Native Americans, like, I had no idea. I'd never heard that in my entire life. It was great.
Yeah.
There's just so much out there that you can't be aware of all of it at once.
Right?
No, you really can't.
So
you really cannot.
Jeremiah, this being a Swapcast, I think I'm going to hand the reins over to you, brother. Is
all
there,
right,
this is, you are now the host in a way.
All right, let's see what happens. So, the questions, if you guys both have answers, that's cool. Or if one of you has an answer, the other, we'll just be whatevs.
Yeah.
But first off, so this is more for me. I'm curious. Define what's a strange road? What's the deal
we get this
We've
a lot,
been on
guys.
one.
Yeah, so that's kind of the metaphor.
Daniel Boone National Forest. We've been on it.
We
got lost on it.
From where we were 20 years ago to 10 years ago to like the path to get kind of in a place where
it's weird how I got here.
Are kind of pursuing our passions and getting to a point where we're doing this podcast and trying to create things that we're passionate about, that we're interested in. We've made a lot of really amazing things for clients and other folks over the years. And, the life experiences of being in a back road and, the inspiration of really our brand and logo is a lot of just experiences in American Southwest. So when the strange road being a kind of a metaphor of the path that we're on, and that's what I pictured in my head was those times in the American Southwest as the sun's setting and you're in the desert.
It just kind of gets mystical.
There's some definite
Albuquerque
interesting experiences that we've had as a crew in Sedona, and Bub and I.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to ask you.
So, that's the artist that we worked with, and he's like, well, what do you really like see? It's like straight driving down this desert road, or in the back hills of Ohio, kind of in the hills with, hunting for earthworks. But
kind of that, like, you're in the middle of nowhere kind of feeling, like just that, and I've driven on those strange roads through Montana and Wyoming and et cetera. There are roads where you don't see anybody for 100 miles, 200 miles, whatever it is. And you're like, am I the last person on the face of the earth?
And there's spooky stuff.
Totally.
I mean, it's got everything. It's got ancient history, petroglyphs, UFO stories. There's cryptids and Sasquatch and Thunderbirds. And, we went on a Earth Wisdom Jeep tour back in 2010 and got smudged on top of a vortex by this guy, Kevin, that
was fun.
Played 2 different Native American flutes and kind of just took us on this tour was supposed to be like 3 hours. It ended up being like 7 because he was just having a great time.
It was really
like, I don't really get to do this with people that are into it.
He just
like, you guys are having a great. Usually it's like some rich people from Beverly Hills. That are, wearing crystals around their neck. And
I feel like by the end of it, he wouldn't even ask us anymore if we wanted to.
He just
At
kept
first, he was like, "Hey, I don't normally, but would you guys like to?"
Oh,
and by the end of it, he would just kind of
go, "We're doing this,"
and we'd be like, "We don't know what Kevin's doing, but we're down for it." And he pulled out some medicine wheel cards, and kind of.
Oh wow.
I remember at the time, like Mike says, a lot of times when we talk about the story, him just having this very like on the nose draw from those cards where he just each of us drawn cards. He's just like, this is so freaky, man. Like this is
we're
weird.
Reading the cards out loud.
He's like, they're just too close to what you guys are talking about. Like, because I was moving to California for a travel nurse position at the time.
It was a time of change.
Yeah, and he was just pulling this out of these cards basically.
Shifting.
And like, I mean, what he read for Mike wouldn't fit for me. Well, let's put it that way. So it's not like your horoscope where it's just this is gonna catch everybody. It was like way too on the nose. Like it was cool.
It was weird, and it freaked him out too. That's when we kind of were like, okay, this guy's he's more excited than we are almost. Like he was totally.
Pleasure's all on this side of the table, Peter.
Yeah.
So did you actually walk into the vortex area then?
So we went to a few different ones.
Yeah, because we got out and he was like, look, right there. And you could see like a line in the ground. And then there would be a juniper that was just spinning
you could
as it grew up.
See.
And the other junipers are just like bushes. And these would be
it was spinning?
The growth of the root. The plants would be bent over or like.
Oh, it was like growing in a certain way.
In a spiral.
Yes.
Wow. So they actually.
Vortexes as they
He would show us the what he called a ley line or the spots where you can actually see these cracks in the bedrock. And then he taught us how to basically what you do is you just hover your fingers over top of that crack and you just kind of start to feel maybe a sensation,
a little tingle.
And you're connecting to it in a way. So we were just open-minded going, what's going on here? And Bub was totally not expecting any of this, and neither was I. I was just like, this sounds great.
It was on a way. He saw Jeep Wisdom Tours, and I was like,
that sounds awesome.
Hey, my best friend is driving across country with me the day after New Year's, which is New Year's Day. We get there, and I'm like, hey, man, whatever you want to do. We're in Sedona. I've been here before. Whatever you want to do while we're here, let's go do it.
Yeah.
And he's like, cool, we're going to do a Jeep Wisdom Tour. I'm like, hell yeah, we are.
Yeah.
And it turned out, that's kind of one of my favorite things. I'm not a planner. I'm a very much like in the moment. Yeah, that sounds great. For the most part, why not? Unless, physically I couldn't do it. Yeah, I'm down for pretty much anything.
But it was cool because he showed us the science of it too, that NASA had been studying and found it.
Oh, yeah.
With scans in the 1950s when they were doing starting up the space program. And that's when they kind of realized that electromagnetic force was there. And then also showing us right where those cracks are, you follow it and it hits this juniper, and it's just growing in this perfect spiral. We saw him
right there
in
he
2021.
Just point at it and be like, "Look, right there," and you'd be like, "How the hell did?" And you just see it, and you're like, "That's crazy."
In 2021, we went to Sedona for a shoot with David Lone Bear and his team, Ancient Echoes. Clifford Mahooty was supposed to be involved, but he ended up getting sick, which was kind of sad.
Yeah.
But we had a day where we just went around and hiked and went to Cathedral Rock Vortex, and again, you see the big giant cracks leading, and you see one that goes right into this middle, this perfect juniper. It's so beautiful. And sure enough, I go, there you go.
Yeah.
Showed the guys. I'm like, this is what I'm talking about. So even
Right there.
the last time I went, same exact thing. Saw the spiral junipers again.
Yeah. Well, didn't Kevin say on our Jeep tour that he was like, there's a lot of Hollywood celebrities that live out there?
Robert De Niro.
Because
Al
of
Pacino.
the energy that comes out of the earth.
Yeah,
Really?
De Niro's got a house there.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Well, and even like Tom coming on, our last guest we had in that we did our live YouTube show with the Strange Road. He came in, he talked about Serpent Mound and the impact crater. I don't know if you're familiar with Serpent Mound in Ohio.
Oh, yeah, I know a little bit of that, yeah.
It sits in an impact crater.
Oh,
right?
really?
Yeah, that was hit by
Okay.
Yeah, like what do you say, 300 million years
I think it's
ago?
27 million, but yeah,
No,
a long
no.
time ago.
He said, I think it was more than that.
I don't
Like a long
Millions
time
of years ago.
Millions of years ago. We'll have to look at the tape. Anywho,
Way.
but he said when that impact occurred, all of that displacement of the Earth in those layers, all of those different layers of strata have a different charge, positive, negative, etc.
ions.
And so it changed all of the charge in that crater. And so like it also there's a fault line that goes through there, and just like the energy that comes
all
out
these
of there,
different
like,
things. The
new
fault
cars will
line-
just stop running.
So the meteor hit the fault line,
Yeah.
and then there's all of this basically like breccia. So that's got like chromium, all these different metals in it.
Yep.
And that's when NASA showed up at his rock shop and was like, hey, we're here to study the crypto explosion, which they thought it was from underneath the Earth.
Nope.
It turns out
impact
because
crater.
of this breccia that Tom helped them find, they went in and analyzed it, and it's all this space material. So
Oh,
they
my
knew
goodness.
then that it was a meteor impact, when for all these years up until the 90s, they
I
realized
thought
that
it was an explosion.
it wasn't
outwards.
a crypto explosion or like lava or a gas pocket underneath the ground that blew up. That is actually a meteor impact from above.
And this is in Sedona, you're saying?
No, this
This
is
is in
Serpent
Ohio.
Mound.
This is in Ohio.
Yeah,
This
this
is
is
the
we've
impact
been there
crater.
a number
Wild.
of times, but yeah, it's so he was talking about the energy flows that come out of that and how new cars will they'll stop running. They'll
Batteries
just turn
die.
off. The alternator stops running. He said one day there was a derecho and a high wind came in, and he sits right by the fault
You don't
line,
mess
and
with
it's
those.
literally down the middle of the road. And he said they
Yep.
saw that derecho come in and lift that from the fault line to the power lines and transfer it, and it melted the power lines. He's like, we watched it happen.
AEP came out and said, "You're on a fault line. That's why that happened." The power company
Didn't
told them.
didn't even blink an eye at it. They're like, absolutely, that's what happened.
Yep, and it's not some paranormal thing. It
That's just a real
AEP's
phenomenon.
confirming this is why
Yeah.
all these lines just blew. You're on a fault line.
That
an
is
impact crater.
wild, man.
Yeah.
And those ancient people built this ridiculous, unbelievably advanced structure inside the crater.
Yeah.
Huh?
At a high point, up on a plateau.
So I got to ask you, what do you think is in the mounds you guys have out in Ohio? What
Well,
do you got going on in
the
there?
thing is, there's so many different kinds. There's burial mounds, and then there's mounds
Okay.
that are like from intrusive people that came
Intrusive
later.
burial, yeah.
So they would dig down into existing mounds and bury their dead, and they were probably
Like borrowing some space.
a culture
We're going to build our own.
that came into the area much later and wanted to revere their dead by putting them inside these more ancient structures that were already there.
Kind of emulating them. Yeah.
So some of them are burial mounds, but that's what people think of when
Mixed
they think of a
burials.
mound, that there's most of them are these earthworks. So
Yeah.
the big difference is the earthworks most of the time don't contain any bodies inside the geometric patterns unless it's a mound inside of a circle that was meant for someone from high regard. But the Hopewell, the Adena, they built these really advanced mathematical, astronomical, either calendars or markers of the solstice. There's moon calendars that are octagon shaped that track the 18.6 year lunar cycle from front to back. That's in Newark. That site as a whole takes up the entire city of Newark, Ohio.
Yeah. It's
So-
a big earthwork.
There's so many there's a few different cultures, like Bub was saying, the intrusive burial mound culture, the Fort Ancient, the Hopewell, and the Adena, which some of the nomenclature is right now being pushed,
kind of being
to
reworked.
change, because Hopewell is actually a gentleman
owned a farm.
It's a Confederate soldier that owned this farm where this Hopewell mound was found, and so they named that culture after him.
Right.
The Adena.
That's
yeah.
weird. Yeah.
So
Right.
the names are
they don't fit the culture.
Because here's the thing, like the Cherokee, the Shawnee, they're descendants of these people, but most of the tribes will say that, hey, these were here before we ever got here, so they're older than the kind of modern day tribes that were in Ohio,
Right.
and so that culture is lost. It actually is a lost civilization. Nobody knows who they were, what their actual names were. So Adena culture was
right. It's just a name we ascribe to them, or whoever came along and built a house there.
Early archaeologists.
Oh, this is Justin's
like the mansion.
Justin's people. Like, no, I'm just a farmer.
Thomas Worthington's mansion
Yeah.
in Chillicothe, for example, was called the Adena Mansion.
Right.
So there was this big mound on his property, and
the
so
Adena people.
They called that the Adena Mound. Therefore, the people that built it were called the Adena culture.
Yeah.
So it's just this guy's mansion.
Finders, keepers,
in
losers,
Chillicothe
weepers was real
is
back in
how
the day.
they're named after.
Yeah.
And then Fort Ancient, there's a site called Fort Ancient, but doesn't have anything to do with the Fort Ancient culture. It's all very, very confusing. It's like been that way for, over 100 years. But the first book ever written by the Smithsonian was from two guys from Chillicothe, Ohio, that went around and documented and surveyed mounds all over the Midwest, going all the way to the Mississippi River. And so Ancient Monuments of the Mississippi Valley is kind of the 1840 when these things started getting hardcore documented. So,
but they were definitely seen and known about before then, but really not like put together in a kind of a collection of study, right? It was like a newspaper article or Farmer X found this, or,
there wasn't professional archaeologists.
Right.
And people were just digging them up. Freemasons, doctors, lawyers, people that were, former Confederate soldiers.
Just enthusiasts in general, too. People that kind of knew after the word got out.
Indiana Jones type
I think
guys.
if there's a million of these things, conservatively, putting an estimate on it, they're kind of common back when you first got here because there were people that were living here.
And people were fascinated when they started moving into Ohio. It blew people away because they were seeing along these river systems these incredibly advanced geometrically, mathematically. Back then, they didn't realize how mathematically and
they didn't understand what they were
geometrically perfect, and actually had ratios of phi and pi and all these different mathematical principles encoded into them, with all these solstice alignments, equinox alignments, planetary alignments. So it's like, whoa. I mean, that's the Mayans, the Egyptians, super advanced cultures were tracking these type of solar happenings and planetary movements.
Yeah.
And
weren't they also digging up like giant bones at times?
Yeah.
We've done some digging
we believe
into that,
to be... the problem is you can't prove it. There's no bones.
Well, there are bones.
Yeah,
they're there.
They're in a museum that we don't know about.
Apparently,
let's put it that way. I asked Leper about this too.
River.
Yeah,
I did ask Leper about that as well, and he hit me back and he said they did pull some skeletons out at, I think he said Serpent Mound, or some of the mounds that were 7 to 8 feet tall.
Oh wow!
He did admit that.
I have it in Twitter.
Whoa! How are you just telling me about that now? I'm glad he did.
And now
there's a lot
on
of
the internet. Big time.
That's because Jeffrey Wilson has worked with the postcard that was in the Peabody Museum at Harvard.
Right.
He found the postcard and was able to,
there was a skeleton
from scale,
from the knee up,
find out how big that skeleton was, but there was no lower leg. So if it was
to find scale and
the
figure
size
it out
was at least 7 feet tall.
But they have a lot of this stuff still on hand. It's just not displayed. And I mean, that goes for
Sure. Yeah.
I would say a bulk of Native American artifacts in general, because there are millions.
They're in
probably
Europe.
upon millions. But you got to think
We
what an
don't even
artifact is:
have-
an earring, a bracelet, of this, what
The
there
Chicago
are-
World's Fair and the Chicago
Yeah.
Museum.
Yeah.
The Chicago World's Fair actually had like thousands and thousands of Hopewell artifacts that they are
Really?
now in the Field Museum. But for the that famous huge Chicago World Fair, where they unveiled all kinds of, I think that was the one.
Was that where they lit it up?
Where they
with light bulbs?
that was in New York. But one of the turn of the century World's Fair that they had, all those artifacts were brought there to be on display. So unfortunately, Ohio, we don't even have the artifacts of these
wild.
people.
Oh yeah.
They're in Harvard. They're in
They're in the Peabody
Chicago.
Museum.
It's just wild
Yeah.
that you can go to Ohio History Connection and they have some artifacts there.
Yeah.
There's this mica hand. There's really interesting copper jewelry and copper art that people have found. And it's just really advanced artwork and geometry and mathematics. So you can get so far deep into it
Yes.
because
Serpent Mound is like highly
just one
contested at the
site.
moment too, and is kind of a hot spot of topics. Mikey brought me down there years ago, right? Like, I don't know, 6-7 years ago. It's been a long time. But when I was like, why do I want to go to this? And I was like, okay, cool. We'll drive a couple hours to. It just didn't click with me at the time. I wasn't really in that phase of life. I think
Right.
in the job I was in, I just didn't really care about much because like I just want to get to the next day and just not be mad about today and whatever. But got down there and kind of check it out, and then he's gone back a number of times. I've been back a number of times, but it's just grown and grown in notoriety here lately. But the mound itself, and I mean the alignments. If you follow the bends of the serpent and stand at certain spots on certain days of the year for the solstice and equinox, when you're standing at such bend, it rises right there. When you stand this way,
Really?
it sets
Oh,
right
yeah.
there.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, it's
That's
aligned to
intense,
true
dude.
north. It's sitting in this highly charged, energetic area of the world. Like, again, I mean,
on a
it's
fault line.
it's a wild, wild place, and I mean, it's really interesting because again, it's been such a I won't say a secret, but just not very on anyone's radar until. I mean, it was on Ancient Aliens a couple of years ago. I mean,
and the alignments really just came in really the 90s. This couple that were dowsers spent a ton of time out at Serpent Mound just tracking to see if there were
amateur
any
couple, right?
They weren't. They were amateur archaeoastronomers and dowsers.
But since
And
they weren't credited,
but Jeffrey really, really believes in the research that they did.
Same.
A lot of people pull from
I'm saying
that.
they don't have the card. They're not in the club. They're not an actual.
They're not accepted.
Yeah, sure. Gotcha.
The accepted
officially
narrative,
such and such.
The official narrative is that there are no certain alignments that they found that they don't agree with, but there are markers out there with the equinox, sunrise and sunset.
It's really cool if you check it out. I think you'd like it.
And moon rises and moon sets. So there's moon, there's the sun. Some people say there's connections to Draco and Cygnus and other constellations. So
definitely going to put it on the list to check out. Like,
it's a giant mystery.
We went to America's Stonehenge in New Hampshire when I was growing up.
So jealous.
I want to hear about this.
God, dude.
Place is cool.
I don't know if I've ever heard of this. America's Stonehenge?
Oh, yeah, you've heard of this.
Again, this is like me remembering from when I was like 10 or 11 and not into the weird stuff yet. But I remember it's like you literally go into the woods and it's like, imagine a little Stonehenge with more rocks, but it's like in the middle of the forest, but like along different, like the solstice.
Yep.
The solstice, you can. It's like it lines up. It's just the weirdest thing. It's like how do you explain this? It's like,
do they know where
everything
it came
you were
from
saying
or
about
who?
The Serpent Mounds? It's the same thing.
Do you know where it came from or who built it or how old it is or?
So,
like theories on this? I've never heard.
Some
of this.
people think
That I
it's
don't know.
ancient. Some people think that is very ancient.
Stonehenge of say it again. Stonehenge.
The Stonehenge of America is
It's
the
called
name.
America
it's the nickname.
Stonehenge.
America Stonehenge.
Yeah.
All right, I will look it up tonight and
New
research
Hampshire.
it. I'll listen to that or find something on it when I go.
And
to bed
it's
tonight,
private
'cause
property. There's a guy
it
that
is.
actually
Yeah.
Can you
owns,
go see it
owns
still?
the land, but I believe you have to. Yes, you can, but I believe you have to book ahead of time.
All right, well, put it on the list of places we need to go and check out.
But
Yeah,
there,
dude.
isn't there like chambers that light up when the sun hits a certain chamber?
I remember there were different things you could walk into. Yeah, like
Right.
stone type chamber things. I do remember that.
That's cool.
Yeah.
It was really weird. I had a lot of questions as a kid. The people I was with didn't have a lot of answers. So,
Sure.
yeah,
That's funny.
that kind of thing. So,
That's
guys,
great.
what are your favorite cryptids of Ohio?
Loveland Frog for me.
Mikey loves.
I love Loveland Frog.
It's the wand and the.
It's just the whole
He's like a.
what it brings of the little magical ceremony that's happening down there.
Yeah.
It's
The
so
evidence is very little, though. I just like the idea of it all being real.
Yeah.
That's fun to me.
weird. Right?
Now,
Right.
obviously, the most probably reliable, the Ohio Grassman Minerva
Yeah.
monster.
Absolutely.
I think that's much more documented and
Yeah.
provable. And
Well, I kind of claim
but
Mothman,
for fun-
but I know it's West Virginia.
yeah, well, no, there
But
were
the bridge
sightings in Ohio.
spans, and that's what I'm saying. And the bridge, I know, but that bridge
The Men in
spans both,
Black.
right? So, I know it's the museum's over there, and it is their cryptid, but I'm gonna adopt it for my favorite cryptid because I just
Yeah,
find
I
that
know,
story
it's-
fascinating. I actually cracked the book back out again. I need to start reading it, but the Mothman Prophecies by John Keel is one of my favorite.
Oh, heck yeah.
Oh, it's so good because I said the movie was great, right? But kind of conveyed the overall just weirdness that was going on to a certain degree, but they didn't get into the UFOs surrounding all of it, the Men in Black surrounding all of it, all the strange stuff that happened to John Keel, like phone lines that weren't his that were in his name, and oh, your secretary took a message. I don't have a secretary. Like all this weird stuff that followed him forever.
Very
like
weird.
that little clip in the movie where they're portraying him with whatever the guy's name. I can't think of it now, but he basically says well, you noticed that they're out there. You noticed this thing and didn't notice that you noticed it. He's like, most of the time, nobody can pay attention to them. Nobody can see them. Nobody. So he's like, it's kind of, he kind of had a spooky tone to it. It's not a good thing, but I think in that essence, maybe, Mothman, maybe if it wasn't a benevolent entity, I don't know. But
There's so much to it. Injured
there's so much
Cold
surrounding
and
it,
the
right.
TNT area and the Men in Black that show up and
You
they're
can
all
get really deep
disjointed.
into the lore of Mothman.
And
Yep.
the lady from the OU or from Ohio or I'm sorry Athens newspaper.
Oh,
that
she's
came
great.
down and
She's
she was breaking the story as it was
Yeah.
happening live.
I can't remember her
and
name
Men
now.
in Black were
Keel always
visiting
talked to her. Yeah.
and then John Keel started really communicating with her and other
She
journalists.
had interactions with the Men in Black a couple of times because
totally.
they were
They came
coming
to her
looking
office.
for Keel. Yeah.
looking for John Keel.
was
Like
her
that's
name?
the stuff that
Wow.
I never knew about.
So funny,
Blew my mind.
ties into this. In my previous job, when I was reading this book, I actually worked with a girl whose aunt was one of the girls. I think she's the one that had the baby and fell down in the front yard and saw the Mothman.
Right.
And I was like, wait,
really?
what? Who's your aunt? And she's like, yeah, I was like, can I
Get her on the
forgot
show.
about that? Yeah, we could probably
Heck
talk
yeah,
to her.
dude.
I could reach out to her. I
That's
never thought of
amazing,
that.
man.
Oh yeah.
Maybe if she's,
Dude.
I don't know how old
we
she
could
is
blur her
now.
voice or blur her out.
Yeah.
And change her
well,
voice.
I mean, she's already spoken on camera. It's not like she hasn't given the.
true. Duh.
Yeah.
But
I
still,
mean,
That would be a
it-
cool interview.
and it's kind of like one of those things how you said earlier about the whole the tall owl, the big owl.
God,
Yeah.
I want to
And
see
a couple
that.
days later, it's like a synchronicity thing almost, right? Well, that's how it happened with reading the Mothman prophecies and having it out. And I just never forget this girl. Oh yeah. Oh, you're reading
That's so
that?
weird.
Oh, my aunt and such. And I probably about fell off my chair. But to
Oh,
her,
man.
it's a story.
It's whatever.
To
Yeah.
me, it's an account, right? Like there are two different things about that. Like a story is maybe it's real, or maybe it's not real. An account is maybe it's real, not real, but somebody saw this. Somebody had this account. Somebody I can't say for them whether or not it really happened or not. That's only between them and their own experience, right? But you got to choose to go with people on their stories sometimes and accounts. And again, to her, it was just more of like, Aunt so-and-so. Yeah. And it didn't hold any weight to her. But to me, it was like, it's like discovering your uncle's Superman.
Yeah.
And just thought that was,
right.
Okay, everybody's got one of those. No, we don't. Like, that's pretty wild.
Yeah. Southern Columbus, I worked at, before it was AT&T, it was Singular Wireless.
Yeah.
That's kind of dating me a little bit. But I worked with this lady that grew up in Point Pleasant as a kid.
Oh.
And I brought it up. I said, wait, you're from Point Pleasant. Is the Mothman, have you ever heard stories?
Oh, I used to ask everybody
She
that.
goes, I can tell you right now that it all happened. I lived through it. The stories are real.
Yeah. Mary Heyer.
The bridge, the reporter. The bridge, the sightings. She's like, I knew people that were involved with the sightings.
Right.
All that whole summer was just fear and palpable fear.
Wow.
From everybody that lived there. As a kid, she said everyone was terrified. So whether or not it was real, the people that were experiencing it, going from old to young like her, to her,
who knows?
That
the fear was
real.
Oh, yeah.
The experience, the fear.
Well, think about how many people probably didn't talk about it.
Oh, yeah.
Because there's still some people that are pretty good about, stifling
never
it away.
come out.
And
Never come out.
Didn't happen.
Because they don't have anything to gain, dude. We've talked about
not only
this
that,
at
but there are
nauseam.
people that don't come to grips with certain things that don't align with them.
True. They fight it.
Tom saying how he got his house.
True.
The guy was like a Baptist priest. The gentleman that was on talking about Serpent Mound again, he lives in a paranormal haunted house that apparently produces doppelgangers.
Oh my goodness! No.
He runs a rock shop that is on the same property it's adjacent to the house, right? So people will be like, "Hey man, I just saw you outside at the wood carvings." He's like, "I've been in the shop."
Oh,
and they're like, no, I swear it was you. And it's like,
I came up and you wouldn't say anything to me.
Yeah.
I called out for you. You didn't say anything.
yeah. Or people interfacing with people in the house that they know are in the house, that when they see them, they won't talk to each other.
Or one guy was in another city.
And they're like, oh, I was upstairs for the last 2 hours. I haven't come down the stairs.
Never came down the stairs. Like, yeah, but I saw you. No, I was upstairs the whole time.
Oh, believe me, I was, my jaw was wide. I was just like, I love doppelganger stories. I listen to a lot of Monsters Among Us, and I've just recently discovered what a doppelganger was, even in the, paranormal cryptid experience.
From the Witcher's point
I've known
of
it
view,
from somebody going, hey,
like
you look like
sci-fi.
so-and-so, that's great, but not,
Fantasy.
hey, I saw the exact you walking the streets. Like, what? That's really creepy. So my question to him was, do you think these doppelgangers are these, these energies in your house, or these spirits or whatever they are, and that's how they take shape to kind of interact, because you know them and you're familiar with them, and that looks like somebody you know. If it was a stranger, that would freak you out, right? And what are you doing in my house? But what else did he say? His water faucet would just turn on in front of him, like the water would just start.
Well, especially if he's got a rock shop in his house, like what kind of weird stuff from all those different rocks?
Right.
Well, and he has the largest
something.
He has a trilobite collection that he had on display at the Smithsonian for 25 years.
Yeah. I saw he's trilobite, the largest trilobite.
He's a wild man.
In the United States or the world, the largest species is from here in Ohio.
Yeah.
And so Tom bought a piece of property and started from a farmer years and years ago. He found out where they were and just became hooked, and has a few books about trilobites written, has been featured.
Yeah, he's such a Swiss Army knife of stories. Like I said, directly the road that his house sits next to is where that fault line sits, right?
Wow.
Across the road is a Dollar General that he was talking about paranormal activity that happens there. And it's just
in the Dollar General?
Oh,
all the time.
It
and
used to be a house.
over.
They tore the house down to build the Dollar General.
Employees will come over to his rock shop and be like, hey, do you know anything about... And he'll stop and be like, yep. Yes.
We know it's
haunted.
Yep.
He said the ghosts know them by name, the workers.
Oh, no.
He's seen pots drop off the shelf in front of him as he's walking through the store. I was just like, okay, I'm coming down and camping out.
change lined up in a circle. All these quarters
around a bag of cookies
that
were
they
opened.
just come out
No
and
way.
like all of this changes on the floor.
He
in a
can look
circle.
out the house and see the lights flickering across the street at night.
Right. At night, when nobody's there, he's just in his house and like the lights turn on and off. It's like there's nobody there. It's
You
it's
have
like,
an interview with this guy?
This is who we just interviewed
last week.
Last
Oh,
week.
yeah. Dude,
Yeah.
I
Last
can't
Tuesday.
wait to listen to this.
yeah, check that out.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude.
He's great.
But we released a
lot of
piece,
fun.
a little mini doc, a 20-minute little doc that we did, that we started the project a few years back for a live stream. It was like
Kyle
a
and Mike
cool
did.
playback that we did for this live stream event that we produced with Tom and that we produced with his wife Terry. And so we kind of re-edited that, and it's going to be for sale in the Rock Shop as a collector's DVD. We released that. And then had Tom on to kind of promote that coming out.
Yeah, and just talk
and
about
just
in
hang
general
out
and have some conversation.
And
he'd done the tour for 25 years.
yeah, the Impact
And has
Crater
never,
tour.
I guess, put it to paper or media.
It's never been captured. So he's
He's
been
just
doing
the guy.
kidding?
No, he's just the guy that knows it. So people are like, go to the Rock Shop.
book a tour with Tom.
He's the guy, the NASA scientist that helped build the lunar rover, showed up in his shop. Hey, do you know about the crypto explosive blast crater? And he's like, yeah, I can show you the breccia. That's what Mike was saying. The breccia is when that impact crater hit, it drove down. So where you sit at the lowest point of the crater, that earth is newer than the highest point of the crater. That soil is older because the ground got pushed up, right?
Oh,
Does that make sense?
And then fell back down into the hole.
Yeah. So that's how he says you're
yeah.
in an impact crater is when you have that timeline flip.
Oh, wow.
So
That is
he was
so
like,
cool.
sure, I can show you. So he's a Swiss Army knife of interesting.
Yep. Met
Really
him.
had me
That's
floored.
fascinating.
Yeah.
We'd been going to their events I had been going to their events
Yeah.
for a few years, and then finally got a chance to go to the Rock Shop and meet Tom, because they'd always been running around their events. I could never actually
And he's
say
out
hi.
digging and
Oh yeah, he's a busy guy, but
he got started digging them because quarries used to be open
to public, yeah.
and you
People that
could
wanted
go
to
find
dig.
these strata, layers and get into them. And he was a kid. He found fossils as a kid and stuff. And then as those got shut down because they're a safety risk, right? You could fall in, etc. He had to kind of go out and source his own areas, and that's what Mike was saying. How he kind of hey, you've got land on this place. Well, this is what I want to do here. Can I rent space? And then what else do he say? He tells people what else he'll pull out of the ground, because there's usually other minerals or what are you gonna say, rocks and gems that he'll bring to the stones and crystals.
That's
and he'll
the Rock Shop.
tell him what he's got. What do you have on your land? So kind of I scratch your back, you scratch my back, but it gives him his space to go out and still pursue a very big hobby of his that made him pick up and move his entire life just because he lived in Detroit
mines.
Originally. He
Worked
was
for
building
GM.
Cadillacs.
Yep.
But he was digging trilobites, and somebody's like, well, you need to go to Serpent Mound, Ohio. And he's like, what? Like, where? Okay. And,
A lot of people from other places end up there. Like, you'll hear...
some magnetism to it.
Yeah. And there's a
That
really...
sounds like Shasta in California.
It kind of...
Same thing happens with Shasta.
Very similar. Sedona, Shasta, Serpent Mound, all have that
People
kind
are
of...
drawn to it.
Yep.
Right.
We live close enough where we can get there it's about 2 hours, 15 minutes from... So it's...
Yeah, but it's not a bad drive. It's
an
pretty
all-day adventure, because, you can hike down below to the Brush Creek. Underneath Serpent Mound, there's hiking trails. So it's just a beautiful, beautiful area.
Are there like local regional like cryptids or monsters that are seen in that area? Are there like stories of those?
It's funny you just bring this up. At Jeffrey Wilson's and Friends of the Serpent Mound had a summer solstice event this past summer, and we did a little live stream for them and helped them out. Dusty Ruth. I'm not sure if you've ever heard of Dusty. He's I've
never heard of Dusty. No.
Bigfoot researcher out of kind of the Cleveland area, but he spent all summer in Adams County around Serpent Mound, and says there is an active population there.
Really?
Without a doubt, he started getting reports, and
there's not a lot of populace there. There's not a lot of people there.
Yeah. and there's farmland mixed in with, because it is on the arc of the Appalachia. So that area, once you start going more south and west, becomes more and more hilly and can be pretty wild. I mean, there's some deep valleys, kind of Locust Grove, and it's a little bit more flat, but you got to get kind of out of the crater. And so in that kind of southern area,
southeast of
is
that is
a
where it
lot
gets
of
into the
forests
mountains.
and river systems and creeks. So he got some casts and some evidence.
Oh, cool.
And says that, yes, there is, he firmly believes that there is, could be one of those situations where that summer they were passing through. But as far as like, because it's a lot of farmland. And like Justin and Jay were saying from Cryptids of the Corn about that area of Ada is probably a migratory path for the Sasquatch that him and his family saw. Yeah. That guy probably wasn't living in the area, but passing through. And so maybe Serpent Mounds, something like that. Yeah. But
I don't know. It's
gonna have to look that
some kind of strength to it.
Yeah, Dusty Ruth. He's on our short list of
Dusty Ruth.
Jeremiah, do you have any personal or know anyone that's had any kind of UFO encounters out in Iowa? Is that a common thing out that way?
So, well, let's see. There is a documentary that came out on me. It's very dry where I am right now.
You're good.
There's a documentary that came out that was filmed in the Van Meter area about a few years ago, called 1903, and it's a group of investigators that are more into the paranormal, but they actually capture quite a bit of UFO activity around Van Meter, which makes it interesting.
Okay.
I believe you can watch that documentary on. There's a platform called Paraflix. But so there had been UFO activity in Van Meter scene around the same area where the mine, which is pretty cool.
Nice.
Well, the description seems very like interdimensional, Mothman-y almost, where it's if they're shooting at it and it's this kind of like
beam of light out of its beak?
It just doesn't seem physical, I guess is what I'm saying. Is this thing
it seems
UFO
like a true
related?
Cryptid,
extraterrestrial related in some way.
There's a lot of people that feel that. There's also a group of people that are. There's also a theory that gets brought up every year at the festival somehow. By you hear it is, well, maybe the visitor got into the cave system and then went all the way out to Point Pleasant, and then became the Mothman. And it's like, okay,
wow,
I get it. Like,
that's going deep.
Fun.
That's deep.
That is
fun.
That is,
but the descriptions don't line up. But it is really fun.
They don't.
No, that's why I thought at first, but then I was like, this isn't the Mothman, and that's great. I don't want it to be the Mothman necessarily, right? Like. But it's some similar qualities. We start getting into some categorization or grouping of at least, similarities. And I think that's where maybe people go, okay, well, what was that? And it's like, not really like, it doesn't have the same description overall. Going into the cave system, though, is interesting just because of the whole Paiute story and about the half massives going up.
That's what I was thinking.
Oh, my God.
That story again, so I'm sorry I have to bring this up. I feel like every episode the Hollow Earth comes up.
I'm not mad about it.
I'm sorry.
I was literally just going there. So
it's Journey to the Center of the Earth, man. They find these weird creatures. They're coming up into... and through the mountains and from
classic.
the
You're telling me he's
honeycomb
wrong?
Inside, and they're coming out, being seen, and then all of a sudden, they're all being chased back into the mountain. No one ever seen. The last time they're seen is down in this system to never be seen again.
Right, but think about this, and from the story we talked about just a little bit ago on our Strange Happenings thing. Sorry, I can't get this label off, but I'll just block it. We were talking about that Paiute story and the Habmasivs, and when they were there, they were seafaring people, and then the water went out, right? And it became Death Valley because there's no water anymore.
Right.
But they knew about the Panamints and getting up into the mountains, and So they were like, hey, we know about that. We were up in this. We watched as the waters receded, etc. They go, how do we know how things played out and what, where things naturally kind of settled, right? And where's a great place to be, right? A natural stronghold.
Inside a mountain.
Go inside yeah, absolutely. I mean.
But these weird creatures, maybe, are they coming through portals from another dimension? Are they actually terrestrial, but just live underground? And have developed this weird biology.
I like to think they're cryptids. They fall into the category for me of extremophiles. So yeah, they might live underground and they might have complex cave and networking systems. And Politis might find out that the Van Meter monster and Mothman have been throwing a disco underground and like snatching people out of Yosemite and all the parks for years. Who knows?
People always bring up, it's like, well, maybe there's some like hollow earth thing going on under Van Meter.
Dude.
And there's other weird stuff that happens in this town as well. So I interviewed
Stranger Things
named Rachel from the town. Because some episodes of Bigfoot Society, I'm the only podcast that gets really deep into this cryptid because I love it. So
please do.
Go for it.
I was talking to Rachel, who's she lives in the town, and she was telling me some stories about how. So you don't just have a cryptid that's seen there. You don't just have UFOs that are seen there. You also have legends where supposedly there has been a lady. There was a point a few years back where there was a lady seen walking the streets at night where it was like she was like a ghostly figure wearing a dress. It was like an old style dress. And then they kept seeing these figures in the high school of Van Meter as well. So it's like, what exactly is happening in this town if you have a cryptid being seen?
Portal.
You have UFOs being seen. You have haunted poltergeist features. Like, is there a ley line that goes under Van Meter? Who knows? Like, it's wild, man.
There's some kind of ancient.
I think there's a lot to figure it out. Yeah.
Right.
For sure.
And that's that whole whatever's in front of us type trap we fall in. Well, there couldn't be that under us. Okay, well, we know the Mammoth Cave system from Kentucky goes, 400 some miles up to the east coast of the U.S.? Like, like our cave system is pretty broad and expansive. And to your point of the whole, those spaces like that and the ground above them, look at the cave systems where they sit and where our national parks are.
Oh, yeah.
I always think they're like a big cryptid zoo, like a big preserve. Like, hey, we're going to need space for them. This is how they're trained. Yeah, this
move around.
Like I said, Stranger Things, soft disclosure, little front running.
Honeycomb Earth, man.
I'm telling
Hollow
you, man.
Earth,
It's
cryptids.
For sure, man.
All that shit's connected, dude. It has to be.
Dude.
In some way. I mean.
Or it's calling it into existence in that certain way.
Mm-hmm.
That's the other scary thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, so I listened to I think it was a Higher Side Chats the other day, and I can't remember the guest name of the guy that was on, but he was talking about two different rain dances being done to call in rain by these two different shamans or Native Americans, and the one does his rain dance and nothing happens, and the next guy does his, and of course it rains, and it rains for like 3 or 4 days, and he's like, how the hell did you do that, right? Like, and so they start talking about it, and the guy was like, you don't pray for rain. Rain already exists. So if you're calling to the powers out in the ether, you don't say, I need rain. They go, rain's there. So he goes, you become rain praying to rain. You pray to it. You don't ask for it. It's already there, right? And
it's very intense.
Yeah, and so this guy that asked him that was like, oh, he's telling him on the podcast, he's telling Carl what he's like, yeah, so I go, I pick blueberries every year and this and that, and I usually bring an offering to the woods and like thank them for the blueberries and this and that. And he goes, the next time you do that, go be a blueberry thanking the blueberries. And the guy's like, this is fucking bananas. He's like, all right, whatever, I'm going to go do it. So he does it. He goes, I've never had a better yield. He's like, those blueberries were insane the next year. It's just like
bonanza.
Well, just the way that we think about things, right? Like the way that we go about, like, you don't ask for it. It's already in existence. You don't, you pray to it from that perspective of it. You get that. I don't know. I mean, it's very meta and very deep, and maybe it takes a lot of meditation and practice, but it is an interesting concept. Yeah, of like, you can't bring it into existence; it already exists type thing. I think was where I kind of just it stumped me for a minute. I was like, that's really interesting.
Yeah, like Ramdas says, you can't want anything because you already have it all.
Right.
I am curious what you guys think all those pilots are seeing up in the skies. What is being seen up?
You want to take that
I
one?
know that's a question.
I have my
There's
theories.
so many good accounts of, I think it's the Japanese airlines coming into Alaska with the UFO that was playing chicken with them, and going from their altitude to above them. I don't know how many thousands or hundreds of thousands of feet to very low. And I mean, again, it's kind of how I got drawn back into Sasquatch. I was not a big believer in Sasquatch for a long time, and I started listening to a lot of episodes of hearing people in the woods that are hunters, and that's all they do. They're looking to hunt, right? Mm-hmm. So if they come back, and again, you don't get overnight fame and success in your small town if you come out and say, "Hey, I saw Sasquatch." You get ridiculed. Right. So you don't generally come out and say anything about it unless you're just kind of like, you know what, I don't know what other recourse I have here. Like, I just have to because it's the truth, right? So that's what I think percolates up or bubbles up from these people that get on these shows and start telling their stories, is that it's such a real encounter that they don't know what else to do with it, but they got to tell somebody. And that's great because you're not alone. I'm sure there's other people that are having similar encounters, right?
The pilots are the best
trained.
Example.
Yeah, you're trained. The pilots with the UFOs, exactly. Like
the Tic Tac and the David Fravor's and David Fravor and all those guys.
I said that's the slow walk back Roswell style they're trying to do.
But now they are.
I know.
I think 2023. It's a dam that's just going to break wide open.
Yeah. I think
eventually it'll break hard. It's going to break hard. Yeah.
Those technologies. The problem is they're going to have to admit that those technologies are here, and if it is a mixture,
it's a brand new game
and they knew about it. And we've been reverse engineering this, and let's say a percentage of them are really advanced black op crafts, which I think to be the case, or some sort of advanced
or breakaway society, or the
some kind of
powers
advanced
that be that are taking their new Ferrari of the sky out,
and they're just trying to freak us out with
who knows,
some kind of hologram.
Maybe it's the X-Files and Project Blue Book, or not Project Blue Beam. Mm-hmm. Of leading us. I don't know if you're familiar with that concept or watched a lot of X-Files, but that was a very big show for me growing up, and the entire concept of the smoking man and how kind of all this misdirection is to, yes, there are extraterrestrials, etc., but what we're doing is we're manufacturing this to tell you about them so we can engineer the world to kind of be this unified as we go out and greet. Right? Does that make sense? Because
that's population.
That's why,
right.
Yeah.
So there's this whole
America,
kind of
England, Australia,
dangling a carrot.
We're all nations, but if you're going to go meet a population of ETs, you come together as the world.
Well, and also then it was to weaponize it.
You would hopefully,
to weaponize the threat of extraterrestrials to that was also the other part of it, was to say, hey, we need it. It was the whole Ronald Reagan statement.
Globalization, the new world order.
You remember Ronald Reagan's statement? The whole if we knew about UFOs tomorrow, how quickly we'd all get on the same page and
we'd all
realize how tiny we are.
We'd be high-fiving everyone. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Instantly.
Like we got a band together.
Yeah. Instantly. So it's interesting. It makes you. I've heard a lot of the different conspiracies and accounts of, meetings at I think it's Edwards Air Force Base in California with Eisenhower and the treaty with the Greys and the EBEs and
that's
the exchange of human DNA for that and research. And I mean, I don't know. There's just so much out there anymore. It's like I keep paying attention, but do I have a solid yes or no on it? I don't.
As far as what we're seeing right now, the escalation of how many sightings and the different shapes and sizes, I feel like there's just something, as far as just the sheer volume of sightings, something's going on.
Well, and Russia's shooting down a UFO, or apparently they tried to. Or
all the UFOs over in Ukraine, those stories. There's a ton of stories, dude.
There's a ton going on right now. I did not.
This was back more like a few months ago. There were like continuous stories coming out of that area of like stuff being seen in the skies and just like what is that? Yeah,
They're
it's
like
weird stuff.
coming to warn us. You know, hey, we're here.
Or they're waiting to see
Let's-
somebody shoot off a nuclear bomb so they can disarm it midair with some laser beams.
Right.
I don't honestly, but
Well,
I don't think we'll ever see a nuclear device detonated that way again.
Hopefully.
Oh, I hope not. But
Well, I
it's
mean, I don't
crazy
think
how
if
many
they're
times-
yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Sorry, Jeremiah. Go ahead.
how many times the like the missiles have been disarmed at a nuclear site by
Right.
something
Oh.
like flying around like that is just like
Right.
holy mackerel, what is going on?
Just
But
Yeah.
Beam
my
of
favorite
light.
theory is like it's us from the future time traveling back to
Man,
certain periods.
sure.
To
I was
do
gonna say-
sightseeing.
Sure. And we're the babies,
I
right?
was gonna say
We're the babies,
Yeah.
and they're the adults, and they're like, "Damn kids, we can't give you anything. How are we going to give you limitless power and knowledge? Like,
Exactly.
it's going to kill yourselves." So I mean, but it also, you know, the whole time traveling thought, the whole Rendlesham
they're us
Forest,
from the future.
right? Rendlesham Forest incident where the guy was like, "They're time traveling." So what if it's like they're monitoring us to make sure that we make it so that they make it, type thing?
Make
that's
sure we're
cool.
on the right timeline.
right.
We're not shifting timelines
yeah.
like Loki.
I mean, it's there's
Because we probably keep messing it up through the whole Mandela stuff. Like, wouldn't that be awesome if we
Well-
kept like messing it up and they kept having to come back to like course correct
Right.
things?
What
like
if
a real life video
nuts.
game for them.
What if that's what CERN was doing? CERN is throwing
Dude.
us on these timelines, and we're ripping open space time, and all of a sudden we're just, whoop, and that's why you're getting all these Mandela effects, and then weird crafts, different shapes are constantly coming through as this veil is extremely thin because we're just literally making mini black holes every time we're colliding particles.
Set
And that's
Half-Life
why
2 all over.
Cryptids, Dogman,
Yeah.
the weird
dude.
things happening out on, Skinwalker
I'll say this.
Ranch, and it goes on and on.
I was watching a video the
sure.
other day of a, the Oculus and all that you can put on the AR set. Well, now they have it where you put that on, and you're like standing on like Bikini Atoll, and you hear this countdown. It's
Yes,
on
I've
10,
seen this one. Yeah.
9,
Oh,
8, and then
it's
a
crazy.
nuclear bomb sets off, like miles away. And when that shockwave hits, and then everything around you just looks like it's burning and probably will be soon.
Yeah.
You don't think if there's a superior intellect being out there, they're seeing this from, they're like,
dude.
what the hell is that, Jeff? We need to get down there. You
Yeah,
see what they're doing? Like, what the hell are wrong with these guys? They were on a good path, and now they're using it to blow themselves up. It's like Joe Rogan with the
They're
hammer,
messing it up, dude.
Yeah, you can use a hammer to build a shed, or you can hit yourself in the, balls with it.
Yeah.
It's how you use it is up to you.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
God, it's
Oh my goodness.
But yeah, it's just
Sure
wild to
is.
think that we're not alone and know that we probably aren't as much as we think we are. And it's just, I think one day that'll be just the Men in Black aha moment of Will Smith going into work. Like, oh yeah, of course there's aliens. Like, just
Right.
maybe that is that like cliff. Like we've been running it for so long saying it doesn't exist. And one day we're just going to wake up tomorrow. And next thing you know, they're going to be like, yep, it's all real. And everybody will be cool with it.
I think that might be this year.
I mean, I would not be shocked.
I'm really that this kind of slow release since 2017 is kind of when it started with the New York Times article.
Yeah.
That right before Thanksgiving,
Bob
not many
Lazar's
people.
Lazar's back, incredible again.
Dude, Bob Lazar, let's go.
Right?
His
Bob
his story
Lazar's back
over
already.
time gets more and more credible.
Well,
as
because it never
things
changes, really.
that he
at all.
says start to come out as yes,
It's wild.
we have created uranium 130, the particle.
Oh yeah, yeah. He's like the David Icke of
442.
ufology. He says all
Right.
these things where you're like, man, this guy just sounds so out to lunch, and then 20, 30 years later, you're like, you feel bad for thinking how insane some of the things sounded.
Yeah.
I remember reading The Biggest Secret, going, this is like fiction. This is great
Yeah,
fiction. I
that's
mean, this
fun.
guy is like just drawing it all together like it's real, and then you start watching it, and you're going, "Oh, what is this, Nostradamus?" It's just really wild, but it's also kind of interesting to know that as a parent, as it seems sometimes, and maybe later on is correlated. There are also the people that you could tell until you're blue in the face, and they're like, "Oh no, that can't be. No, there's no way there's a Sasquatch. There's no way there's a UFOs. There's no way any of this." Right? Like the guy that moved out of Tom's house probably just didn't want to believe it. It's happening right in front of him. He's seeing it happen, but it's against his religion, so he's out of there,
Baptist minister.
Right.
So, yeah, I don't have anything clouding me in that way, right? Like, I don't have anything that says you can't believe in this or can't believe in that, but also following evidence as much as possible, right?
So when you guys were taking you've taken these trips all over the place, right? You've gone on these strange roads all over the place. Yeah. Have there been times where something you've just either stumbled upon something or you had a situation where you just got freaked out and you're like, I don't know what's going on right now, but I want to get out of it? Anything like that?
Yeah, I haven't gone public with some of those a little bit more. We're trying to find a way to work some I can be kind of basic with it. There's a property.
It's whatever you want to share.
Yeah, there's a property here in Ohio that has basically white bison that were moved from California. It's a herd of white buffalo that were brought to Ohio. And essentially our friend had kind of helped with the acquisition of the land and got different this investor involved and brought this herd to Ohio, the hills, and through a series of events and different experiences that are just very, very odd and kind of lined up with it being important, we'll say, to history. It could possibly have a mound and a temple on it, on the property. And the fact that these bison and this herd are on this particular property, and some of the things that we think may or may not be on this property and buried, potentially artifacts, potentially, it's a large piece of land too. And it's just been a little frustrating because we've been on a little bit of a dead end with it, and really trying to get ourselves back out there to kind of keep this mystery alive, for me at least. I won't
being
let
halfway
it go.
through a Hardy Boys.
Yeah,
you know, you don't.
Right. Oh man,
you hate to be on the cliffhanger of it, and really, I think from Mike and Kyle's perspective, coming from the vantage point of how we got to here, we're doing this in general, right? Like, I don't do this so that somebody's like, "Oh, that's great, you're cool." I do it so I get to talk to you, so I get to talk to Tom, so I just love these conversations, right? And that's what I want to be dropped into. Yeah. And so that's why I get jazzed up about it, is because I know the intent and the direction that both of these guys come from, and again, where we came from to get here at this point. And so it's more of just knowing the added amplification, whether that it doesn't have to be even like in notoriety or people knowing about it, but how can we help get this message out in whatever fashion that is, right? So I think that's where I know Mikey gets, you're like halfway through the mystery, right?
Yeah,
it's tough to be that stuck in the middle.
And Serpent Mound, similar. Like, we've had experiences out there that are just like unbelievable, and that's why I kind of keep going back to there, and just sensing that it's like changing my consciousness, that it actually is a machine for elevating your higher self and your higher purpose. And I've used it to, through, getting to know myself. I found my biological family a few years back. And
it's like an activator, right?
It totally
turns you on and charges you up and gets people moving.
I found out I had 4 brothers and sisters that I never knew I had. I found my biological mother, found out their family history, that they actually had a house that went back to the Revolutionary War in Adams County, right down the road from Serpent Mound.
So here's some of the strange road.
So that's part of that, like the road to get to what I'm doing, what we're doing now, was a lot of like figuring out who the hell I was and how I fit in with the fact that I landed in this small town and grew up with you.
You should tell them the story you told me just the other day. about if you want to shooting at Ross's house when he was like, "Oh yeah, I just wanted to ask you, who was the lady?"
Oh yeah, I could share this story. This is kind of cool.
This had me going pretty good. I was like, I've never heard.
But
of
again,
this.
Ross is a part of this journey, this strange
Ross Hamilton.
Ross Hamilton.
If you know Ross Hamilton, you asked about giants earlier, Jeremiah.
Yeah.
If you want some pretty good insight on that, Mikey can probably point you that way too. But yeah, Ross is a pretty good resource. Ross Hamilton.
Yeah, he's pretty much the OG of giants research. He's one of the.
Yeah, I have heard that name. Yeah.
So like.
Yeah, tell me your story.
A lot of guys that have written giants books kind of give props to him as an inspiration, or even bring him in to write the preface of their books. If you're into it, eventually you find him and meet him. So that was kind of, I saw him and Jeffrey Wilson speak at one of Terry and Tom's events, Serpent Mound Star Knowledge, years back, and introduced myself, and we had the chance to interview him like a year and a half ago, and we showed up to his house with a bunch of gear, cameras, lights, and it was myself, Stoner, and our buddy Sam Thompson. Shout out to Sammy.
Sam,
boy.
what's up?
And Ross is just a kind of open, in tune guy. Has had multiple different types of lives. Was in a psychedelic rock band back in the day, and at one point was had a guru in India and had gone through kind of this spiritual training.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how he got led into the earthworks and the spirituality and trying to figure out the archaeoastronomy and the religion of what ancient people in Ohio were doing, because what he had learned about ancient India and other cultures, he was seeing all these things pop up here in Ohio. So he just went down a rabbit hole and had written books on Serpent Mound and a book called The Tall Ones, which is about his this ancient race of giants that ruled in Ohio and had very advanced technology and farming, and so we got to interview him and kind of wrapped up the shoot, had a great time, spent all day with him, and then Christmas Eve. So my mother, my adopted mother, which is my mom, passed away, I think almost 9 years ago now. And so
no, I'm sorry. I just know because it was my 30th birthday, I think.
Well, Shanti, my daughter just turned 9, so
2013
when she was born 10 days later. Right? So 8 years. It's been a while. So we leave, and on New Year's, Christmas Eve, I get a text from Ross. Hey, I was just curious, out of the blue, just curious about the woman that was with you guys that day for the shoot. Give me a call back sometime. I just felt like, that was just wondering who she was. I'm
Me
like,
too.
There was no woman with us
or
at
in the
all
house with you.
And my mother passed away on the day after Christmas.
Yep.
Which would have been like 4 years before that. And so I said, hey, do you care if I give you a buzz real quick? And I call him. I said, hey, Ross. And he says, yeah, there's this woman with you guys, and she was just looking at you, and she was just so happy you were doing, and was just beaming and looking at me and looking at you, and she was just so proud of you. And I said, there was no woman on our production. There was no one on our crew. And he says, oh, okay, well, I thought it was kind of weird because she had light coming out of her hands and kind of behind her. And I just thought that was kind of strange. And I said, well, Ross, I think you met my mom. He's like, that makes sense.
Okay.
Because she was so happy. And I said, well, you're a big part of, she knew how much that I wanted to meet you and do this interview. So she was definitely going, Day, oh my gosh, this is amazing.
So we were over cool. Christmas Eve, and that was even wild. My wife was
the next
just
day.
like, hey, you should just stop by Mike and his parents. I'm like, no,
Christmas
they're having
Day,
Christmas, And my wife's like, no, we should go. And then we stop over there, and the next day we were driving back to Columbus, and I got a text from Mike, and he's like, hey, she just passed. I was like, what? Yeah. Like, just one of those weird, again, synchronicities of timing of
but it's just strange
Wild.
that it was a personal, just a quick message to me. It wasn't like him trying to push any of that. He honestly just wanted to know who the person was in his house.
Too. I would have said
and
the
thought
same
it was
thing.
odd that there was this light.
I'd be like, by the way, there was a lady with glowing hands, and can we talk about it?
But I just got chills immediately and is just
what a fantastic story.
Kind of freaked
Right?
out.
It's amazing.
Right? Yeah, Mikey's got a little bit of magnetism too. Like he pulls in kind of he is he doesn't know it, but he has kind of created the strange road beyond his awareness, right? Because he does pull in such unique personalities. And before I had any idea who Ross Hamilton was or Tom Johnson or Jeff Wilson, Mike did, right? Like he was like, hey, I just met this guy and he told me this and this. I'm like, wait, what? And 100 miles an hour. And it's just, he's built up such a knowledge base over the years from doing all of this that, I mean, I have my own experience with what I've, looked into and researched, but Mikey's got his own kind of aspect too. So kind of combining, we have overlapping and some, personal interest, but I think that's kind of been the blend. And we also get a lot of influence from Kyle and his, curiosities as well. And, from people that send in a comment, hey, what do you think about this? Ask about that. Cool. That's great. I didn't know about that. That's awesome. Put it on my radar, Yep. Like I said, there's a lot to try to pay attention to and keep track of that. It can get very overwhelming. And I don't want to get siloed into just looking at one aspect. And, it sounds like you don't either. You're like, Van Meter Monster, Bigfoot. We talk about Mothman. You can get into the Loveland Frogman. You know what I mean? Like, there's such a broad expanse to look at.
Never had a cryptid experience.
I haven't either.
That's one thing I hope.
What's fun about it for me is, you get a comment or someone sends you an email and then that just sends you down a crazy rabbit trail. And I read a line in one of David Weatherly's books about Iowa cryptids, about this thing called the Iowa Bigfoot Information Center. And then I was like, wait, what's this? I've never heard this in Des Moines. Well, that's the thing. So I looked and I couldn't find anything about it on the internet. It sent me on this 4-month crazy putting stuff up on walls with red lines and figuring it out.
Charlie.
It's exactly like the meme. That's what I was trying to reference. Great. So pretty much what it ended up being was there were all these Bigfoot sightings in the late 70s, and I found this out through a lot of reading newspaper articles through that, right? From that time, but pretty much the Iowa Bigfoot Information Center was a group of gentlemen in their 20s that were taking all the Bigfoot reports, and they would meet in this guy's garage. Cool. So it wasn't, but they were trying to raise money to create it. It never got made. But the crazy thing about it is that, and I'm really summarizing it, and if you want to hear the whole story, I have an episode about it on Bigfoot Society.
Cool.
But
yeah.
I end up
absolutely
the two main guys that headed up. Turns out one of them lived really close to me, but I never knew he was there. And then he had passed the year before. So then I'm looking on his online obituary page. And as I'm about to totally give up, I look at it again, and the other guy has just commented on the page, the co-owner of the research back in the late 70s.
Nice.
So this guy is still alive, and I'm like, holy mackerel, I got to find this guy.
You got to do it. Yep.
Because he's almost 90 years old, and he could be gone soon.
Right.
So it turned into this crazy, Googling everywhere and leaving random phone messages on people's machines that I could find in public record. And eventually he called me back, and he's like,
that's great.
Who are you? And
who are you?
I haven't talked about Bigfoot in 50 years, and this guy from Iowa is like, hey, you were doing this, and you talked to this guy and took this.
Blowing me up.
In the late 70s, it became the Lockridge Monster of Lockridge, Iowa, and it's a really big deal. And what's the Iowa Bigfoot Information Center? He's like, dude, you got it.
Whoa.
let's pump the jets a little bit, or let's pump the
Wow.
brakes. And like, he's like, okay, I just want to make sure you're cool, and like, let's talk about it. And so we had a great conversation about what it really was, and like, I found out all this information about that wasn't on the internet about this time period from a main source that was actually there. And now he's almost in his 90s.
That's really cool.
And then I
Dude.
ended up presenting about it at the Van Meter Visitor Festival that later that year. So
That's cool.
the recording of that is in a episode of Bigfoot Society, but like, that's a good example of a time where you can really go deep into some of this stuff. And
Yeah.
but man, you just go after it, and it's so much fun. Like, that's what I love, is just going after stuff and figuring it out, you know?
Yeah. And-
Put the puzzle together.
Yeah. Absolutely. That's really cool.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I love that he's like, who the heck are you? And what
Yeah. Who are you, young man?
It's like, how did you get my number? And I haven't talked about Bigfoot in like 40, 50 years. I was like,
Dude, good for you. That's like a piece of history that you just brought to the world.
It is, yeah.
And someday someone will go back, and because of you, they're going to know about this story.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that
Keeping
right
those
there
pieces of
has
information.
to fulfill your soul.
Yeah.
That alone to keep doing what you're doing.
It really does. And I can't wait until I'm like almost 90 and some
Right.
guy tracks me down and is like, hey, you used to talk to dudes about Bigfoot. Like, blah, blah, blah. All right, dude. Easy.
Yeah.
That's funny. That's
Hey,
even
I'll
better.
be that. Hey, you're that dude that won't shut the hell up about mounds.
Hey, they'll come knocking.
That's-
One day.
Yeah, they will, dude. They will.
They'll drop out of their
Awesome.
AR, VR reality, whatever it is.
Oh,
God, I
God.
didn't
Yeah.
even think about what it's going to be like. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, everything accelerates so much quicker than it ever did before, and it's only going to keep doing that. It's like computing power, right? Like processing power just gets better and better and better. So
I know it.
by extension, we get better and better and better gear and tech, and
Yep.
but it's wild. It's a fine line to walk of getting lost with it.
We haven't discovered the spiritual technology. That I think
Spiritual
is
technology.
the sound, the
Have you seen this stuff with
know.
mushrooms? And they'll
What?
plug them.
There's a
they
lot
plug them
there.
in.
and creating batteries
No, to speakers and like the mushrooms and how
Oh.
they send signals
through the mycelium network.
turns into sound waves, and it's amazing. Yeah, I mean, there's
Yeah.
a lot of really interesting
Wow.
research in both the psychedelic and the just mycological study of mushrooms in general going on. And I think we are. Maybe you're right, Mike. Maybe 2023 it happens because we are seeing a lot of
It's
never
all
thought I
emerging.
would see in my lifetimes of psychedelic research, marijuana legalization, not broadly, but again, these things gaining traction that used
Michigan's legal
to be.
now.
You can't think
for
that far out of the
psychedelics.
box, right? Like you can't go that far. Like and even psychedelic mushrooms being legalized in certain states.
Oakland,
I think
Oregon.
Right, totally decriminalized. So I think
Colorado.
you're seeing some really
It's true.
big, shocking
Yeah.
movements in just that landscape alone. Of like Hancock always says, like they're policing the ability for you to elevate your consciousness. Like,
Yeah.
what the hell's that about? Like, it's really funny because, I think the minds are becoming open. And
That's the final frontier, right there. You're going to learn more about
psychedelic astronaut.
psychedelics. Are going to be
DMT realm, whatever.
That's
Yeah.
the microscope. That's the instrument.
The DMT elves.
That's the instrument for the mind and consciousnesses. Those are technologies. That's what I
don't
say. I call it it's
Find one of
spiritual
those studies and
technology.
sign up for it. That Strassman or whoever does it puts it on. Where they were doing it at one point. You could sign up for these DMT experiments, and they were doing like intravenous administration of certain doses of just like. I mean,
People
you're
like-
being monitored, right? And there's no like medical ill health effects, right? But you better have somebody there when you let go of reality,
Well, it's all with a
it
doctor.
changes and.
nurse practitioners were there.
No, yeah, I know. There's a full staff.
Medical,
Don't get me
yeah.
wrong, but I'm saying like that you're going to need it for. I mean, I would think you'd need to be strapped to the chair or to the bed.
You need to be comfortable. Put it that way.
Because aren't they they're trying to like map the realm that everyone, man, this is so
The
weird
DMT
to say
realm.
that sentence.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and
Well,
they're
yeah.
doing a pretty good job of it with the
Yep.
fractals.
That's wild, man.
And the fractal
We have
video
chemical
technology.
receptors for it, you know.
Those fractal videos that keep going deeper and deeper.
Oh yeah,
and
yeah, that
deeper
keep
and
kind of digging down and zoom in endlessly,
it's
like infinity. It's like a Mandelbrot set. Are you familiar with those at all, Jeremiah?
Absolutely not. No.
God, was it the guy that wrote? He was Arthur C. Clarke, I believe so. And this is back in the day when they had to bring it by satellite. I think it was like him and Carl Sagan and Stephen Hawking, and he ran a computer program on his computer. And if you want to look at some, you could go on YouTube and type it in Mandelbrot, Mandelbrot, Mandelbrot set. It's a mathematical data point set that infinitely loops and keeps. It's kind of like the whole tool. That, like
Alex
the
Gray.
Fibonacci sequence of life with plants and how there'll be a leaf and then 2 and then 3 and then 4 and then how it keeps replicating out and but it's these fractal patterns, but it is something that just kind of connects with that whole DMT world of maybe it's just a higher mathematics than we currently can understand of what our brain can do type thing, right? Like
wow,
we can
they
really
say it
ramp
actually
up.
connects to that. Wow.
I mean, it's wild.
Oof.
But yeah, if you check it out, Arthur C. Clarke and Mandelbrot sets is great.
Blowing my mind. I don't know, man.
Mine's blown after this one.
I was about to say, I think I'm thoroughly blown.
Van Meter
The Van Meter Monster.
It's guys.
I've
I
never
can't
gotten
let
a
it-
real clear story, so thank you so much for
But
like
you
sharing
it's the
that.
Van Meter Visitor. It's the Van Meter Visitor.
Van Meter
Oh, the Van
Visitor.
Meter Visitor. I'm sorry.
You got
You're
it.
right.
There's so many
You're
right.
monsters. So many
I know,
monsters.
but
Van
you
Meter
gotta-
Van Meter Visitor.
It's like
I'll never mess
it's
it
like
up again.
Circleville.
Van Meter. I will
Visitor.
never mess that up again.
VV. It's like
VMV,
Circleville,
dude.
Ohio. If you show
VMV.
up and say I'm here for the Pumpkin Fest, people know that you're not from Circleville, Ohio. If you show up and say
snap.
I'm here for the Pumpkin Show,
Yeah.
they know you're from there.
Yep.
Exactly.
So,
then you're legit.
Van
You're
Meter
legit.
Visitor.
And you know, I have seen the T-shirts and stickers of the Van Meter Visitor, and we saw a bunch at CryptidCon, but I never
dude.
really got like it's super popular. Like the Flatwoods Monster, Loveland Frog.
Oh, yeah.
Van Meter Visitor was in a lot of artwork. So
Sherman.
I
did
mean,
he do
someone
one
keeps
of
talking
the-
about it, dude.
yep,
Yeah.
dude, absolutely. I think you're the catalyst. You may be
Well, I
one of
try
the.
to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm serious.
I don't doubt it at all because I know you've been a speaker at other conferences where you've been invited to speak just on the Van Meter Visitor.
That's awesome.
So far, the main one has been the just at the festival, but I do get to do the podcast live at Seth Breedlove's.
That's what
Monster
I was
Fest
thinking.
Oh, cool.
in June.
Yes.
Which that's going to be fun. I'm looking forward to that.
That's cool. Where's that at?
That's in Canton, Ohio.
Canton.
Ohio.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that brings up Jeremiah. Is there anything you want to sign off with? Anything you want to promote? Is there any thing? What do you got going on and coming up? You're going to be speaking. You got some cool stuff.
Well, the main area you can go to get like where my stuff is or listen to Bigfoot Society if you want, check it out. You can go to BigfootSocietyPodcast.com. All the links are there. You can find Bigfoot Society as a podcast on most platforms like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all that good stuff. Check it out. I'm on all the different social media platforms. If you're on TikTok, follow me there. Get involved. There's a lot of crazy stuff going on. Bigfoot.society. But next thing I have on my schedule is Monster Fest coming up in Canton, Ohio, with being put on by Small Town Monsters. It's early June, so make sure you get your ticket for that. Also be at the Van Meter Visitor Festival in Van Meter, Iowa, September 30th of this year. And maybe some other stuff, but those are the things I have planned. So my listeners, make sure that you check out The Strange Road, subscribe to their YouTube, and I'll have all the links in the show notes for this episode. Make sure you are listening and watching these guys because they're going places. So
Oh man, thank you.
Thanks,
Appreciate
Jeremiah.
that. I feel like it's reciprocated on the other side more.
And we feel the same about
yeah.
you, dude. You are absolutely
Hitting
crushing
it, hitting it and getting after it.
We look at you for what you're doing as inspiration for
Oh, absolutely.
where we want to take our next level and steps. But all of Jeremiah's social media links are copied in our description of this stream, and will be when the audio version comes out.
You'll be seeing me tweeting out his stuff on Twitter.
Yep.
So if you follow me or follow The Strange Road on Twitter, I will be reposting his stuff as well because, again, just trying to amplify that reach. And there's going to be people that want to read it if I want to read it, right?
Absolutely. And for Jeremiah's listeners, you can follow us on all social media platforms at The Strange Road.
Instagram, Bub_Ranley, Bub Ranley on Twitter.
Mikey Leisner on Instagram. And then we have a Facebook group coming out. So keep an eye out for that. We definitely have drawn some inspiration from your Facebook group, Cryptids of the Corn's Facebook group. So we feel like that's a great way for reaching out.
Yeah, you can also follow Kyle on Instagram.
Yep.
Kyle Stonard on Insta. He does some rad stuff.
Yep.
He does some very cool stuff.
Kyle does some incredible photography and mini RC car videos.
Mini RC truck.
Been taken off lately.
Yeah, like 4-wheel drive road, and it's pretty cool. And now I keep seeing him in my Insta feed. Mike and Kyle have unleashed me on Instagram, and I'm going wild with it, so I've had to rein it in. But that's where you can find us on social media. And if you go on and listen to us on Spotify, Apple, Google Podcasts,
all those places.
Please leave us a message, comment, hit the like button, what have you. Leave a review, please, or a 5-star if you can. And we appreciate everybody watching us. And can't thank Jeremiah enough for coming on tonight. And everybody that was watching live at home or in the chat. If Kyle was hitting you back up on the keys back there, I hope you guys had fun. Mikey, what do you got?
Yeah, just want to, again, Jeremiah, thank you so much. This has been such a rad conversation. We appreciate your time and giving us the nod. And man, we'll stay in touch.
Yeah.
And
we'll be in contact.
Keep following everything you're doing. And I think
maybe we get a Bigfoot research organization going out sometime. We go on a collaborative camp out.
Yes, absolutely.
Meet somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, let us know. We will. We have cameras. We can bring cameras.
Yeah, that's
true. You got the setup.
We've got some cameras.
Oh yeah. Hot mic. We'll put one on throughout the night. We'll catch it. We're gonna get it.
Nice.
But you see me running, I saw something.
That's right. You're out of there.
You see me booking, I saw something.
God. Well, that's it for us, guys.
Yeah.
Thank you for everybody that's watching at home. We will be back for more awesome episodes and more stuff.
We got more coming.
Keep following Jeremiah and take care, guys. See you, Jeremiah.
See you, dudes.
See you, buddy.
Thank you for listening to Bigfoot Society. If you like the show, please review and rate it 5 stars on iTunes. Hit the share button and send this episode to all your friends on social media. Subscribe to Bigfoot Society wherever you listen to podcasts. It doesn't cost a thing. Pick up a Bigfoot Society shirt or enamel pin over on our Etsy page, and people will tell you all about their Bigfoot sightings when you wear it. At least that's what people tell us. That's what happens. If you'd like to become an official member of Bigfoot Society with a membership card, a community of like-minded individuals, and extra content each month, then please consider becoming a supporter of the podcast by going to www.patreon.com/The Bigfoot Society. Thanks for listening.
Download Upside and start getting cash back wherever you roll. It's like having your own hype man. Get an average of 17% cash back at restaurants.
Oh, it's dinner time.
Average of 13% on groceries.
Get those groceries.
10 cents per gallon average cash back on gas.
It's go time.
Plus, cash back at participating convenience stores too.
Stacks on stacks.
Users can earn hundreds of dollars a year, 3 times more than other apps.
Upside, show me that money.
All right, we get it. It's easy. Just sign up for the free Upside app and start getting cash back for doing you. Download the free Upside app and use promo code DOYOU10 for an extra $10 cash back on your first purchase of $10 or more. That's promo code DOYOU10 for an extra $10 on the free Upside app. Get cash back for doing you with the free app from Upside.
With Tim Hortons 2 Hot Breakfast Sandwiches for $6 deal, you can mix and match your favorites. Mix and match between savory sausage or naturally hickory smoked bacon. Mix and match between an English muffin or flaky biscuit. Any two served with a freshly cracked egg and melted cheese. You can even mix and match how you share it. One for you, one for them. Two for them, or two just for you. There's no wrong way to mix and match this tasty deal. 2 breakfast sandwiches for just $6. It's time for Tim's. Limited time at participating U.S. restaurants. Single item at regular price. Modifications and tax extra. Additional terms apply.